Plat chat, Overwatch, episode 154. Wow,
we're in
you
there.
can't even say numbers. A bit of a special episode, as you can see in the top corner of your screen. This is pre-recorded, of course. People know the gist at this point, because this will air in like December, I think. Currently it's November. So we're in the past. We're in the past. So if we missed out on anything, you know, don't get too upset with us. We're talking about Contenders right now in November, okay? Not where you are in the future. It's gonna be great. I got AVRL joining me, a regular to the show, of course, and you know, the biggest brain when it comes to Korean Contenders. And also, we were invited Heurix and Dora onto the show. Welcome, guys.
How you doing?
I'm good.
You know, I had to put up with these players for long enough, so fortunately, I think I'm qualified to talk to them.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah. We're doing something special this time around, of course. You can see it's Contenders time. So I am a little bit anxious because usually I come on this show and I've like written down hot takes, rants. I got everything prepped to go. And now I'm like lost, like a little bit here. So like I'm going to try my best to just extract the maximum amount of knowledge possible here. The tier 2 like fan base on competitive Overwatch, they're going to like have their fucking minds blown. They're just going to be like, oh, I love this shit. Because, yeah, you guys are so smart, obviously. So, I've tried to nurture. So we have a little bit of Korean contenders, Australian contenders. AVRL, I was surprised to see you're still working, you know, Australian contenders.
Same.
You're still doing like the local show over there. Great stuff.
It's the McDonald's money, I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, you're enthusiastically talking about Frogger diving on Lucy on Circuit Real.
Like, bro, if you don't cast this thing, we have no.
There's just nobody in Australia anymore, man.
We're gonna have to invite Frogger on the show if you don't cast this.
I would take a flight to Australia to cast Australian contenders with you.
Have you seen the prices on those flights?
Only,
You might want to walk that one back.
Wait, what do you
if
mean?
only they would actually fly you.
Google flights. Google flights. How much is it from LA to
I would
Sydney?
walk
We're
that
playing
back.
Price,
I would walk
Price
that
is Right.
back.
Yeah, price is
Price
right.
I just flew to LA. I feel like I paid.
1,100.
Yeah,
Probably that ballpark.
I paid
yeah.
1,000 something.
All right. So if I were to fly, just random day, December 5th. Yeah, about $800-900. So you know, back and forth.
Is that with like no checked bags, no overheads, nothing?
Probably.
Like, just
I mean, this
putting
is
everything between your
Fiji
legs?
Airways we're
Yeah.
talking about.
okay.
And we got a 3-hour stop in where's this? Nadi
This is already
International
horrific.
Airport.
Right. This is
Where's
how
this?
it's going. Scott's in Australia right now, but he won't come and cast.
Oh, Nadi isn't Fiji.
That's cold.
That's tough, man.
He is in the wrong city. He's not in the correct city.
I think it's in
so
Perth. At the time of this
No, he's
recording,
in
I think it's
Adelaide.
in Perth.
He's in Adelaide, unless he moved to Perth by now.
That's
No,
quite
I
a
saw
bit of
some
ways
stuff.
from where he would need to be, though, to be fair.
Is everyone just up on their Australian geography except for me?
I have
Yeah,
no
yeah.
This is what
idea.
the show's turned
I
into.
have
Now
no
we're just talking about
idea.
Australian geography.
Yeah, I am quite intrigued now.
Could be talking about anime,
this
but
is
this
a-
is what we're doing.
This is a pretty big like country as well. Like just geographically speaking.
Oh, we're
Where
really
are we here
diving in.
now?
I was not
Yeah.
anticipating
You
this.
say
at all.
you see all this white, orange, yellow. That's uninhabitable ground.
Yeah, all
That's where
this.
people can't live. So all of the everything that's not green, you can't live there.
This-
See, and just to put it in perspective, where he is, you see on the left that green, he's all the way over there, and he needs to be all the way on the opposite side, literally directly east. On
Wait,
the
what
other
do you
side of
mean?
the country.
Someone's color coded this map. Places you can live, places you cannot live.
But that's so inefficient. Like, can't you do anything about
There's
this
somewhere
area?
in the middle. Somewhere in the middle there, there's an American military base. That's
Yep,
Australians
that's true.
can't go to, obviously, because it's American.
It's like right in the smack
There's
dab
a bit
middle,
of
is it
Cape
not?
Kona right in the middle there, and I'm pretty sure that's where the aliens are kept.
Why,
trust that.
why can't you like do anything with this land? Like, you know, can't you like?
Because it's a desert. It's a
Yeah.
literal desert.
All right.
I had it explained to me by Lemon Q. I was talking to her at Owl Finals, and she was explaining
Truly the
Canada
Australian
because
expert.
Canada's the same thing, but in reverse. It's just cold in the middle, and no one can
Yeah,
be there
yeah.
either.
Yeah, in Canada, all the green, you cannot live. See all that green in Canada? Can't live there.
Dude, their paper export must be out of this world. Like the amount of paper you could just like export from this country.
I gotta say, when I signed on to jump onto Plat chat, really wasn't anticipating this topic.
He's playing
coming up at all.
GeoGuessr.
Yeah, I gotta get into it.
Guess where it is.
You know, I'm feeling a bit out of it. You know, gotta warm up to the podcasting. You know, talk about bullshit. You know, get.
Also, I don't know if this is just me, but I'm seeing 2 reinforcers.
my camera's
and 0
gone.
AVRLs.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Oh.
Once we went to Canada, it ejected me.
Yeah, but disappeared. I didn't realize.
Are you
Connected
complaining
before
about
the
twice
flight,
the
that's
Johnny?
tough.
I don't know.
I cannot fix that live, unfortunately. Whenever we check out some Contenders videos, we're gonna have to deal with 2 Johnny. Sorry, AVRL. It's. I didn't not intend for this to happen, AVRL.
I'll also
sorry.
say nothing, and then we'll pretend I'm not even there.
No. The scuff adds flavor, you know.
Now,
Producers everywhere are just in the rough right now, man. They're struggling to watch this. I'm just letting you know.
The perfectionist part of me is like anxiously just like, oh, I need to pull up AVRL's camera and see what's going on here. Oh.
Woo!
Fitz, Smurf, you're rocking this old graphic as well. By the time this airs, we'll like find out where these guys are. Like Vinda might as well be in the army at this point.
The point was this was a well-made graphic, and I was desperate for a background. I was like, this will do.
You know what the other fun thing is that by the time this airs, Contenders Run It Back might also have run its course. So everything that we
At least
may
When
talk
is this
about
airing?
later
Like 2024? When is this airing?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yes.
You guys make this sound like this doesn't air for like another 2 years.
This is very much my my backup episode. So sometimes like Q3 2023. So in about a year from now, if we can't come up with something, we'll share it. No, I'm kidding. It'll be like it'll be like in 2-3 weeks from now. Because by the
2-3
time
weeks
this airs,
in owl off season is a lot.
because by the time this airs, we will have done a news episode, and we'll have done a fantasy draft episode, and then this one will be at the start of February at some point. So
I realize now that this is leaks for us, so we can just go out there and just start giving away the content schedule.
fuck, don't do that.
It's over for you guys.
If you do that, it's over. I'm gonna have to do one of those things where like someone sniffs out that they're about to get leaked, like I get ahead of it and I like post the programming ahead of time, just so you can't.
Johnny
Anyway,
has to
what the
edit
fuck
this
are we
in
doing here?
post-production.
Jesus Christ, we
BPR.
got shit to talk about. Oh my god, this has been a lovely intro. Thank you guys. I wish we had a sponsor
Yeah.
and we could have turned it into something, but we don't, unfortunately.
Shove in your cup, Heurix. This is our sponsor. Anyway,
What are we?
I'm not going to do that.
No, okay,
I was
don't do that.
about to do it, but I won't do it.
Yeah, don't do that. All right, Contenders. It's been a weird year for Contenders. I mean, with this transition from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, Contenders is definitely, taking a big hit because of that. Had a bit of a lack of tournaments. I believe we had Collegiate at the start of the year, and then it was like, oh, are Contenders going to be played on Overwatch 2? We had the A-Sides and the B-Sides tournament. We had some Shimada Showdown with Australia, and now we're coming up on a couple more tournaments here to end the year. But overall, just like big picture, how have you guys felt about Contenders in 2022? You can be brutally honest. You can 1 through 10.
I'll say, to be fair, I think everybody, what we felt in EU NA is probably pretty much what everybody felt everywhere else. AVRL can probably mirror these sentiments as well. Is that the way things started? Very rocky. I would say understandably rocky. Obviously, new game. I think for our regions, especially, the loss of Dan was a major factor.
Of course, yeah.
But I think as things progressed, things got considerably improved, and I would say where we're looking at right now, things look very good. So it's like rocky start, understandable, but it does look a lot better now. It feels like.
when did the first tournament start? It was like halfway through the year, right? So we had pretty much a full
July, August, something
half
something
a
like
year
that.
or more with no contenders. I mean, like July. I mean, so yeah, basically January to June, no contenders. It's understandable because of the rollout of the game, etc. I know it's pretty rough for the first half of the year for contenders players. It's like, oh, we finished 2021. And there's going to be nothing for quite a while because like they did not get alpha access, which is understandable. I mean, alpha access at that stage, Blizzard was keeping Overwatch 2 still pretty tight to the chest, and they only had to give it to people who needed it, like the Overwatch League players who needed to start their season. And like, yeah, I don't think you could really give it to contenders at the time because that's like hundreds and hundreds of players, some of which aren't contractually bound to anything. I mean, like some dude there could easily leak. I mean, we had leaks coming from the Overwatch League as it was. So you can only imagine what would happen if contenders player got it. But yeah, the point is like contenders couldn't start until the beta started rolling out, and they had beta access, which then could have transferred into OPR. So it's just took a while for Contenders to get going. I think was the
Even
only
beta
difficulty
was
this year.
tough too, because we had that whole closed beta phase where people wanted to get jumping into that off of the back of the open division, and it's like, look, there's like 100 and some odd teams per region that are competing, and it's like, how can we really regulate who's going to have this long-term closed beta access for this specific tournament kind of stuff? Like, can we elongate this tournament? I remember that there were some rule changes happening and everything right before that tournament started. And it's like, there's just logistically like way too many hurdles for us to all get through to have this be perfect. So maybe let's like temper expectations a little bit, at least for that phase. But yeah, a little bit of a rocky start, but I think expectations should have been a little bit, walked back, I think, to begin with.
To its credit, like B-Sides landed on its feet super well.
Yeah,
like,
B-Sides was great.
The adjustments they made, the admins like really listening to the players. It feels like there's a real like change in momentum there. And then B-Sides came around, and it felt like for every single region it was a really big step up.
Yeah, but the meta.
Oh God.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
I'll save my hot take for later. Then.
Yeah, I don't, like, yeah, we did the best with what we had. Like, I think Contenders did the best with what was available, with the beta rollouts and all that kind of stuff. There was also that kind of kerfuffle with like, oh, you'll play Open Division on Overwatch 1 and then qualify into Overwatch 2 or something like that. I don't think that ended up happening, if I remember correctly. Everyone just played Overwatch 2 anyway, but.
Yeah,
I feel like
the Open Division was played on Overwatch 1 then, yeah. And then you played in through trials into Overwatch 2 Contenders.
I feel like we'd be remiss to not mention #Contenders Strike. The tough moment, but we got past it.
What was that about again? I actually forgot about that.
Dor and I were casting the game that actually
what happened.
This happened in. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it was the admin thing.
Yeah,
okay.
It wouldn't be a year of Contenders without an admin thing. Like,
yeah, it was just some an admin thing happened,
Yeah.
Par for the course.
Admin things happen. We had the whole mayhem cheating thing happening now as well.
Yeah. Do you guys get admin issues in like KR?
No, it's not really. The only
admin
admin issue there is like, I don't know, maybe we jumped on it too late and they played too much. I don't know. Like, I've talked to the ops team about this a lot as well. It's like they did the best they could in many ways in that situation. So it is what it is. So just saying, like, stuff happens.
But you guys are saying that like that strike moment was almost like a turning point of some sorts.
It was a major pivot point.
It was good. It was almost bad. Like the players were almost a little too immature for it, and then like it all pulled itself together right at the end. And they almost hit the corner as they were drifting through it, but like they got through it. It definitely did what it needed to do.
Yeah,
I think what was like interesting, like first of all, I applaud players for sticking up for each other, but also there was a level of naivety there. It was like, oh man, do you think China and Korea is going to do a contender strike? And they're like, no. Why would they care? Like, are you serious? Korea's like, no, I don't give a fuck. Like, just going to play my games. Contender strike? We don't have any problems. Yeah, that's your issue.
Yeah. So let's talk about the format a little bit, because every time, like, I follow Contenders and I look at what's going on, it almost feels like there's a different format every year. So in 2020, I think it was 2020, where it was like a pretty weird format and the players were like, what's going on with this? Last year, it was like a month-to-month kind of thing. Now you have A sides and B sides. How are we feeling about the format? Has like the format been figured out for Contenders? Are we in a good spot, or are there still some issues with it that players might complain about?
I think this new format is rough in terms of just qualification for some of those teams.
Okay.
Like having the way of Contenders trials to kind of weed out and create that in between where you have, okay, here's all the teams on the verge, but we're going to have enough games played within Contenders trials that we have a good enough sample size that we can confidently knock down and up teams. Whereas how it is right now, moving directly from Open Division to Contenders, it takes 1-2 bad games in Open Division, or even just like a bad draw in terms of seeding or whatever.
Huge factor,
like, and like, I'll probably bring it up later, but I think Timeless not making it was like obviously a huge upset for them in terms of like the expected result with the roster. Like,
and then they're just out for months.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think under the conditions of a Contenders trials where you have that larger sample size, it's like that team always gets through 100% of the time. But that's kind of the cost you gotta pay to have individual tournaments where you want to do, okay, we want to do A sides, B sides, we want to do run it back. We want to kind of like brand each one differently as opposed to a season to season thing.
Yeah, I would say
you get knocked out. Like, even if you make it in, let's say it's double Elam, right? You lose 2 games, you wait months as well. So
Well, they do have a new for Run It Back. There's a new way that they're going. There's a new format that they're going about it with. We are doing at least for NAAU, we're doing round robins again, but you pull groups and it's like a lot. I don't know this for sure. I know that I think the groups are public, if I'm not mistaken. I think I did see them on Wikipedia at one point. But yeah, you got them right there.
Group 1, you got Group 2. Yep.
Thing about this is that we do have groups, and it's like, how do you like realistically have the seeding for these groups at this stage? Because the thing with Contenders, especially Contenders NA this year, I know we'll probably get into this a little bit more, but there was a major talent vacuum that happened at the beginning of NA this year because of obvious reasons. With Overwatch League, it's easy to get NA players in versus any other reason or region because they don't need a visa. And a lot of movement is happening in NA because of that. Players are trying to find teams to stick long-term with so that they can establish themselves as, you know, who's going to be the next American Tornado, who's going to be the next, I mean, cough, Odyssey, smile. But the thing is that with all that movement means inconsistency in what these teams' performance levels are going to be tournament to tournament. So how are we going to have really competitive groups where the best teams make it through? Like there might be a group where there's just a stack of teams and it's like they might get stuck in groups even though, you know, the top 5 teams might just be in Group 1. I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying that that's a possibility with the way that the group structure is set up right now.
I think it's a positive move moving to groups. I'm not a fan of like, I'm not a fan of like, you know, pure, you just go into a raw double elim and good luck, because it's great for the top 4 teams that make it through. But like, if you're a team that gets knocked out pretty quickly, you've barely played a season. Your season was 2 games. I'm a fan of like Contenders seasons or like events where there is a more guaranteed number of games for certain teams, just for some sort of longevity of existence. So you're not just there for like, you know, a brief moment and then you're gone. And what's interesting about Run It Back is if you look across the board, almost every region has like slightly different format as well. I think NA and EU are the same, but like Korea's doing a group, but it's just one big group of 8 and they play full round robin. And then China does 2 groups, but they also have 8 teams, so it's 2 groups of 4. So do you know what I mean? Like it's
I
interesting
love
how that works.
group.
But then Australia,
I love how everybody plays each other once, but that could catch itself a little bit. Where if you have one bad game against a specific team, well, guess what? Or a team looks different at the beginning of that round robin stage than at the end, because hey, you might have a bad read on what the meta is, and that happens all the time in Contenders because they don't have that consistent practicing with Overwatch League teams right now. Now it's all up to their read specifically.
Really
to Contenders. It's happened before though, where we had
7-game round robin is not an issue though. This is as far as like issues.
To be fair, here 8 is definitely less than like what we had in NAU last season, right?
That's fair.
So I think Korea's got a pretty good format. I like the sort of single round
Korea,
robin here.
Yeah.
Are there teams outside of those 8 that you wish were there?
Really quickly though, in terms of format, Australia is just running. They are running it back because they're just doing another double elim tournament, just a straight up tournament. So like it's just different to everybody. Do you know what I mean? Like this is what I'm saying. Like every region is like kind of doing their own different format. We don't even have consistent formats. I'm not saying like maybe we should have consistent formats but then at the same time, I argued last year that different regions maybe have different specific wants and needs for what they want to achieve.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I'm probably a bigger fan of like the old-timey long seasons. For example, last year in Australia we had just 2 seasons as traditional, like whereas you guys in NA had like the different
3
monthly tournaments, whatever.
Yeah, we had 2 tournaments per like series or something like that.
Yeah.
So we had 6 total tournaments and it was like 3 series.
Yeah.
Better than
Australia
like
was just 2 seasons.
Contenders 2 years ago, where they ran like a tournament every week, and then you got points for every like tournament placement that you got.
We all had that. I think everyone had that for a little bit. That was season 1 2020, I want to say, something like that.
I will say that everything. With all that said, I think one thing that we can all probably agree on is that the one thing that we would like to see for Contenders in terms of format and schedule is just more volume. I think that is a big thing. A little bit lack of removing some of the downtime that exists right now between some of those seasons, I think would be a huge improvement. Something that I know that they're already thinking on for next year. So hopefully we see a big change from what we experienced at the start of Overwatch 2. Obviously, again, with the disclaimer of it being very understandable why things went the way they did this year.
So, I asked the question, like, have we figured out the format? Turns out we have different formats for each region. But
no, we have not figured out the format at all.
Yeah, we haven't really. It does feel like, I do like the double group stage system though, and I feel like Contenders like should be a tournament or a season where like players can showcase their skills and they get opportunity, and it's not this immediate like double elim and like you play 2 matches and you're out. Like I didn't get a chance to like prove what I got. Like even if you're Flera on Flash Lux, you're like, yo, my team sucks and now I'm Flera and I can't showcase what I got going on. Like at some case you want all teams to have some kind of opportunity to show what they got, and yeah, they might get like, they just lose like all their games, but they've still had that playing time, they've been on the screen, and maybe they've had some pop-off moments, and that could change a lot here. So I kind of want to move forward and take that kind of argument as well with showcasing your skills. Do we feel like the Contenders players this year has had the opportunity to showcase some of their skills? And this is sort of where we can dive into the Jotes meta, if you will, and talk about the A sides and B sides and stuff like that. Because I feel like, in previous years, when we look at Contenders, it's been clear as day who are the dominant teams, who are the dominant players, who are sort of like the up-and-comers. There's always been like at least a few players per region that haven't turned 18 yet. And you're like, oh, this player is like at someday going to be promoted to WoW. Like they're just so good right here. In 2022, given the fact that we had less tournaments, A sides and B sides, and not around like not a lot of stuff around that, but also we had Jotes meta that dominated so much of that. How do you feel about like assessing some of this talent, and do you feel like it's like a bit all over the place, or is it still kind of like figured out still? Like who the good players are, what you're looking out for, what like the strengths and weaknesses are of these teams?
I feel like I can tell you who a good player is, but I think the struggle is kind of figuring out how. So if I'm an Overwatch League team manager, right? I see a player like, okay, bring up CJ because I'm sure we'll talk about him later. Like, okay, CJ, we watched Jotes meta the entire time. Incredible Brig player all the way down. This is a solid player. The communications for the team were fantastic. The peel was amazing. He's probably going to be pretty good at a couple other heroes, but how does he fit into your team? Because you've only seen him in the one meta. It's just, you can tell who's good, but you can't tell if they're going to be the fit for you. And I think that specificity is going to make it difficult for managers this season.
Yeah, AVRL Korea, I feel like we still have a pretty good grasp. And I mean, some of that is the O2 Blast and San Francisco Shock connection. We also have Heesang that we've been waiting a long time for now. But how do you feel about like the talent in Korean Contenders? Do you still feel like who you got your eyes on in that region?
Yeah, generally, but I think that the difficulty with Korea this year is everyone's super young. Like there are a bunch of underage players that aren't eligible. Because the class of 2021, basically, like a lot of them got picked up, right? Like a shitload of Korean players last year got picked up. Given how many rookies came into the 2022 season for OWL. So
18, right? 18.
2022 is a bit of a new wave with a few now veterans in there. You already mentioned Heesang. I remember when that guy was like so young in Contenders' career. Was like, wow, this guy's got a while before he can make the league. You could see the talent back then as well. But I would say the new talent coming through Korea always impresses. I would have even said like back then, I think the last time we had like a giant wave of Contenders' Korea talent move was the Element Mystic Runaway era 2019. And we're like, man, I wonder what the next class of talent's going to look like, because we just exported a shitload of good talent. And the 2020 etc. talent beyond, I mean, we eventually got there. I think we mostly culminated that this year, and still pretty damn good. So the new talent coming through Korea is always pretty solid no matter what.
Yeah. Heurix, this is a good time to bring up this amazing document that you created with all the rookies who were promoted to the Overwatch League in the 2022 season. Now, can't fucking figure out how to get these webcams out of the way to showcase the players. Actually, no, wait, this is not. I'm making it... it's not that hard. But I'll just do this. Goodbye, guys. There's just double me. Oh god.
This is an improvement. This is an improvement. I'm telling you.
No counts. All right. So here's 62 players, or 61 actually, that made it to the Overwatch League, and you can see, you know, by region, so the 17 rookies in the East, 45 in the West. Of course, you know, some Korean Contenders players still went to the West, so and you can see rookies per team. This is just an amazing a document, Heurix.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I had luckily I had all this data already, so it was just about putting it to a different spreadsheet so I could share it to you guys. So it was very, very quick and easy. So no worries putting it together.
So
but
you
yeah,
guys are saying that this was sort of like felt, like with all this talent leaving the Contenders, that like you could definitely feel, you know, all these names leaving, and like, oh, there's so many like new names in Contenders that we're not that familiar with.
Heurix brought up the talent vacuum earlier, and it was
huge.
There, I have been pleasantly surprised to see it filled, especially in a region like NA, where you're like, okay, you know, you don't expect the talent, but like it feels like it's been there this past season, especially B-sides. I felt like he started to solidify some things that I'm like, look, it may be early to call, but like these people are extremely good, and I don't think it's been shoes that are too big for a new generation to fill.
Yeah, I would be surprised if this wasn't the second most rookies that we've seen injected into the league since the inception.
Oh,
Obviously,
so you're saying we're gonna have a back-to-back?
Well, no. I'm sorry. This season being
2022.
Second. Yeah, to the first season being the first, because literally everybody in the league at that point was a rookie. But you know, I mean, having 61 rookies, I mean, literally 45% of the West region was rookies this past year. Of all the players that played in that region, almost half were rookies. That's insane. I mean, that's genuinely insane. Yeah. Obviously, with esports, you're going to get higher numbers than you would expect from like a traditional sport. But with regard to NA specifically, obviously, we talk a lot about like the visa problems in terms of getting players onto your team quickly. NA kind of circumvents that because you don't need the visa. They're able to plug and play right away. In some cases, like with Houston Outlaws, with I believe Doja and Lep, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about this. I mean, you don't even necessarily need to bring the player into the facility, so things are very quick to kind of you can assimilate a player into a system a little bit easier with NA. So we had a ton of players that we had last year, kind of in some ways I would say unexpectedly move their way up, and in their stead we had a bunch of players that were trials players, OD players, even unheard of names that we didn't know at all prior to this year, that I think are really, really kind of showing that, hey, there's actually some really solid talent that have been left here that we have that could move forward in the future. I think Amazing is a name we'll probably wind up talking about later that I'm super high on. Donggoon, another great name.
Oh my God, wait.
We're talking about him later. I'm just saying.
So I made a doc. You sent like, okay, here's a script for today. In the doc, you're like, okay, at some point we're gonna talk about who we, you know, our relevant players next year. My first two on the list are Heurix will say Amazing, and then Heurix will also say Donghoon. I'll screenshot it right now.
Yep.
That's Caster synergy right there.
I don't know what it is, but I'm in love with
Heurix. Oh my God.
See, this is that duo synergy. You picked wrong having us both on. You know what I mean? Like, definitely need to bring on someone else because he knows me too well and he's going to steal all my talking points. You know what I'm saying?
It's like AVRL and Proper all over again. You know, we just know that he's associated with it. Love it. But yeah, I mean, this is
met at LAN.
Met at LAN. Yeah, dude. Apparently, allegedly, he squats like 220 or something. I didn't watch the interview, but yeah, what?
I mean, to carry San Francisco, I'm not surprised.
Dude, I'm honestly like, I know that this doc is about rookies, but you put that column in there for player of the match numbers, and Proper with 15, the nearest is 8 for Zest, I think.
Sounds right.
And that was nearly double every other player on this list.
15 for Proper. Yeah, 15
insane.
for Proper. 7.
Only one player didn't get
7
double.
for Stalker. Wow. He did have a few stints there on Soul where it looked really good.
That's the thing. Like, when Stalker was starting on Soul, he was just cleaning that shit up.
Yeah.
And Prophet on Brig was like, that's how it feels, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a support now. I don't get any POTMs. That's how it feels.
Yeah. I think the surprising thing that I noticed when I was just like throwing this stuff together was the fact that every role was like pretty equal. I mean, tank at 13, DPS at 28, support at 21. I mean, obviously you only need one tank in the game, so if you scale that up, it's all about equal. Yeah. I was actually really surprised. I thought there would be a lot, like a considerable amount more DPS pickups.
It felt like it.
going like for this past season, but it was all pretty equal. Kind of surprised. And Dragons is the only team that didn't rock a rookie.
I am
this past
reviewing
season.
the data though, and I mean, if you look at the tank role, there are a few players. So like you say, like 13 rookie tanks in the league, and then you go Adam for the Florida Mayhem,
There's
Dai for the
Chengdu
Chengdu Hunters, Doge for the Houston Outlaws, Itzal for the Boston Uprising.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the thing though, is like when he talks about like it feeling DPS heavy, that's because the DPS were like speedily ping, Sam's going, and like all of the major talent, Venom got picked up, like all this like insane, especially in the flex DPS role. Just absurd DPS talent went up, and so like a lot of the spotlight was on those players that were like the expected ones. And then I think you kind of go down this list because you brought up the whole Visa thing earlier, and it's like, yeah, it's easier to pick up NA players, and then you kind of have to weed out like, okay, you can't use Visa like as the excuse for like why this player was picked up for everybody, right? At some point, it's just a skill thing, and I think a lot of those DPS players were just good enough to make it at that point, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting stuff.
Forgot about Vulcan.
Yeah, Vulcan. Yeah, he wasn't even picked up for Visa. He was just picked up to fill a slot. And then that didn't go too well. To be fair, I think Vulcan should have been picked up for Paris mid-season though. But he instead it was Krabi there. So I do think this rookie data is very interesting. All of them are free agents now, which it's a bit of a shame. But like almost literally all of them. But I do think it's interesting because the Overwatch League and the contender scene, it's almost going to be more connected because there is this like turn of players, jumping between the league and contenders as well. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of these names back in contenders. And at that point, like they've been in the Overwatch League, they've established like an identity, a brand, and we know who they are about. And so I think it's quite interesting, like how teams have gone from, we want the most experienced pros possible that like been around, we trust them, to we're just gonna like throw in the most talented players we can find into a team and see if it works in the Overwatch League. And like I feel like there's definitely been a shift there if you're a team manager or a GM from like just like recognizing talent in the contender scene and being like, we're taking a shot at this young guy. So
I mean, I feel like we've effectively, I don't know if any of you guys play or watch StarCraft are gonna get this analogy at all, but like effectively, right, the Overwatch League and contenders together were like supply cap that at a certain amount. And we've done like the extractor trick a million times until eventually we just have more players in contenders in the Overwatch League than can actually fit in contenders in the Overwatch League. And so that's kind of the question, is like with all these people going free agent, like how many of them stay, how many go down, how many people from current contenders go up, how many of these people just shuffle around teams, like
I think it's good news, right? Regardless of what the answer is, I think it's good news, right? Because it means that like the Overwatch talent pool is very healthy. Like we have a lot of pros that could even play in the big leagues, and it's very competitive in that regard. So, it's looking quite bright in that regard. All right, so let's move on here. I gotta pull up the script and see where we're at here. So, do we want to jump into let's talk into the teams and the players. If you're new to Overwatch 2, like if you just started playing Overwatch 2, this is sort of the way we approach the playoffs as well. So like there's going to be a lot of like introducing viewers to the teams, to the players. So I got a few categories here, and I want to talk about the teams and the players. So in the past, it was sort of like the British Hurricane, and Redbirds. I'm jumping the gun already. It's like one of the teams that people talk about, O2 Blast, etc. Who are like some of the standout teams in contenders? So I want to go region by region. So let's just kick it off with AVRL and the Korean contenders immediately. Like if you're tuning into the Korean contender for the first time, who are the teams that you're like, these is the real deal? These are the big orgs.
So you want to talk about O2 Blast, huh? Where do we start? O2 Blast have won, so they're currently in the middle of a dynasty. I believe in the past 2 years, they've actually, let's extend that further.
Scroll down here. There you go.
In like 3 years, they've won, let's see, A sides, B sides. Last year they won season 1, season 2. 2020 they won season 1. So the only season they didn't win is season 2 2020. That's it. Since 2020, so for 3 years straight now, they've won everything except for one season, and I believe that was season WGS1. Aztec looked like the best flex support in the Contenders career. Laurie was the man. He was the dude. And then off the back of the WGS, they all went to Boston together, I believe, something like that. Except for Aztec, who went the scenic route, and he went through Toronto and then through Vancouver, and who knows now what. O2 Blast have, I think this is the longest running dynasty in Contenders for anybody. I believe that when they won B-Sides, I tweeted out something like, "Oh, you know, best Contenders team of all time." Even now, more wins than like Element Mystic, right? Like they've achieved more than Element. Well, it's a little different because Element Mystic won internationals, and while there haven't been internationals for O2 Blast to attend, for some reason, the one thing about O2 Blast is they've been cursed in terms of either attending an international tournament or just their performance in it, because they did lose to Element Mystic in 2019 Pack Showdown. They didn't even make Gauntlet, and then they didn't make Gauntlet again in 2020 because that second season they lost, and that second season is what got you into the Gauntlet. So since then, you know, for whatever reason, COVID, etc., whatever, there just hasn't been another international. So O2 haven't.
Has there been a next tournament recently, AVRL?
I think they did play in one next tournament and they lost to CC to memory. They're playing some show matches. I don't really count those much.
No.
They did play. They did play NetEase. They played next 2021 Winter and beat BLG 4-0.
I don't think we're seeing more of these tournaments, guys.
And then there's NetEase, and there's the next 2021 Spring. All I can say is NetEase have done a great job with these tournaments, and keep it up, NetEase. I can't wait for the next NetEase tournament. Let's go, NetEase. I love NetEase.
See, here's the thing. I mean, this is going to air in like, you know,
I gotta fix this
some future date. So who knows what this is
in a few weeks.
like,
Yeah,
you know?
we'll see.
You know, NetEase has been propping up tier 2 for so long. I don't know what we would do without NetEase. I hope nothing bad happens to NetEase at all. Really hope nothing bad happens there. So back to O2 Blast. So we were talking about O2 Blast.
This might age so poorly. Like, you're saying this now. It's pre-recorded 19th November. That you're just saying that. I'm like, this might age in so many different ways. I can't wait. It's gonna be like a surprise.
I'm saying things to make this awkward.
Yeah.
And I've achieved that goal. So O2 have also just been responsible for so much of the best rookie talent coming through Overwatch League. They literally are responsible for promoting the back-to-back Rookie of the Years. Pelican last year, Proper this year, probably the Rookie of the Year next year too, if you were to take a guess. If you were to take a wild guess, it wouldn't be surprising to me if they also exported another Rookie of the Year. It just happens year on year on year. This team just continually provides talent, and I think especially with Runaway and Element Mystic gone, O2 Blast now by far just like the top org. But even when Runaway was still there, I mean, they literally beat Runaway in a 4-2 victory in 2020 season 1. Like, they were already sort of overcoming and beating those other like top orgs in Korea. So yeah, O2 Blast without a doubt kings of Korea, and maybe by extension kings of the entire Contenders ecosystem.
All right. So no mention of T1 or anything here. T1 obviously connected with.
And then there's 7 other teams in Korea, and that's just kind of.
I did say, you know, teams of the year. Yeah, I did say one org. Yeah, but if you got honorable mentions, I'll give you honorable mentions here as well.
Talon for always coming second, because someone had to come second versus O2.
Yeah,
and now Talon don't have an Overwatch team anymore. RIP. They might come back if things look better, but they'll chill for now and see how 2023 looks. Other than that, T1 for being there for a very long time. T1, who used to be Fusion Uni back in the day, they've held an academy team for the longest time. How many academy teams are left, by the way? It's now just like O2, T1, and does Uprising still have an academy team? I'm not sure. I don't think they do.
Oh, they dropped theirs after A-Sides, and they were like, all right, we're gonna see how it is in 2023.
Okay, so doing the Talon move. So basically, there's like 2 academy teams left, T1 and O2. And I think in China, is there still Ultra Prime or no? There's no Ultra Prime anymore, so they're gone as well.
I mean, in 2023, I don't think there'll be any.
So literally, there's only 2 academy teams left, and of them, T1 have been the longest running one now. They're basically the last surviving one from ages ago, that being Fusion Uni. So I appreciate T1 a lot for still keeping that going.
I will say that there was some talk. I'm not gonna say specifics, so don't even try to pry it out of me. But there were some discussions that did go very, very far along about some partnerships that would have basically meant that we would have seen the return of one, maybe even two academy teams back to contenders through partnerships. So
Yeah.
it's possible we could see some crop up next year, just depending on how things go. I mean, I think obviously Hopium is very high after grand finals right now, and hopefully we maintain that. But yeah, it would be nice in some ways to see some of the academy teams, but I think some of those weren't sustainable, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You're seeing some of these Overwatch League teams already like downsizing, you know, especially in this like economic climate as well. You know, like it's hard to people are cutting back rather than, you know, spending extra, and it's you know, academy teams and the like, they're going to be one part of the branch that kind of like goes as some of these franchises look to cut costs, right? So it's unfortunate. It feels like you know, Contenders is a decent product, and like it has a lot of potential going into 2023. So if Overwatch League can capitalize on the hype around Overwatch 2, you know, Contenders is going to find success because of that too. And like maybe you can get some sponsors going and, you know, get some more money flowing around, and like maybe
viewership's been really good on every single region that's broadcast so far since the launch of Overwatch 2. Like, yeah, I'm really excited to.
You're doing skin drops as well, right? So yeah. So yeah, people are gonna want those skins. So hopefully, you know, some fuel to the fire in 2023, and I can get something going in that regard. All right, so that was Korea. Moving on. Should we talk about Australia, AVRL?
That's why not. We'll keep it going. I'm on a roll. Just continue talking about.
Esports has the most frightening logo.
What's that? What happened?
I don't know.
Nothing. You're going to talk about another dynasty, and that.
Let's talk about another dynasty.
I cracked.
You did. So in the contenders, so before I talk about Dynasty, a real fun fact, real quick. I don't know if you caught this on my Twitter. I'll send the link to you. We caught a live huntsman in the studio in the contenders.
You did?
Studio. Wow. Yeah, we did, and they showed it on this. We were on at the same time as the Counter-Strike broadcast, and one of the guys caught it, and they showed it on broadcast. They're like, "We'll do preds. We'll put the huntsman in the little thing, and we'll turn it over. And if the huntsman's upside down, then it's going to pred that team. If it's on the right side up, it's going to pred this other team." So they were like, "This is Australia, guys.
Australians, you guys are nuts."
Yes,
it's just a huntsman spider in the studio, and you're like playing pred games.
Yeah. They caught and played pred. And look, it's Australia. I don't know. Like it's crazy. Look, when 99% of the continent is a desert, this is what happens. Okay, there's no water. Anyway, there's no water.
I don't get it. Are no Australians like afraid of spiders? They're just like, oh, they're prevalent.
Yes, my co-caster Fluke was terrified. He was terrified. I'm like, bro, you're living in the wrong country. You should have been in New Zealand instead. We need to swap.
I just find it fascinating.
You know, one of the craziest things about Australian spiders that I've ever heard from a buddy of mine that does live there. It's not AVRL, believe it or not. I do know other Australians.
Keep this short, by the way. All right, we're not going on a spider rant.
Yeah. I will say that the craziest thing is that you guys can literally hear the spiders walk because they're so heavy. Like you can hear their footsteps. That is wild to me. That is so wild to me.
Yeah.
I did not need to know this information. That's just mind-blowing.
Sometimes they burst through the door at night, kind of drunkenly as well. And you're like, man, this spider got blasted again, didn't he?
Yeah, got blasted again. Yep.
Dynasties. The so Direwolves on the top left. Look at the top left there, Direwolves. They're like...
They have Jake. What? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, they have Australian Jake. All right, I'll let you decide what that means.
And Overdose Pirates. What a duo.
Kind of like O2 Blast, the Australian version, but like they've won like out of the last 5 tournament/seasons, they've won 4. So aside from 2020, Direwolves have won like basically everything in 2021, everything in 2022. They just got knocked out after 2 games of double elim because they like destroyed their roster. They for some reason just have a completely different roster. If you actually go into this team and look at their player history, so you'll see, aside from the active roster, if you go down, Cal was in there. Cal, who is, I don't know how he's doing in there, you guys can tell me, but he was pretty damn good here. He was a really good player for Direwolves. He was also playing at like a ridiculous hour of the day. I remember sometimes you'd play interviews, just like, yeah, I haven't slept in 24 hours. I'm like, cool. Very good. He's still winning though. We had Color Hex on this team, and he was actually playing Junker Queen during Jotes. So he did the Dia thing, he did the Dante thing, he was just playing tank.
Oh, interesting.
We have a few of like players that would have been considered like the best in AU, like Kufra and Nami have both been on this team. JCap's really, really good as well. Lab. Yeah. I mean, basically all the dudes in the former tab are like really good at so Direwolves have won a lot. I mean, you can even go down and just look at their wins. They've just won a lot, generally speaking.
Yeah.
They did lose recently though. They also were, by the way, this is a rebrand org from Sydney Drop Bears from 2018, which they won 3 seasons of. Even back then, if you don't have to go and look at the rosters, but they got who's like Face started his coaching career on Sydney Drop Bears before going over to NRG, Talon, then eventually Gladiators, right? So there's definitely a lot of history within this org between the two brands that they've held and how many times they've won. This is like the team. Sadly, if you're like, oh, I'm gonna go watch some Contenders Australia for Direwolves, again, you can't because they just got knocked out like straight away.
Yeah. That's a problem with the double elim format. Yeah.
It's a problem with nuking your roster and replacing it with God knows what. But yeah.
I don't know if it's fair to say nuking your roster as much as it's fair to say NA is just slowly stealing everybody from every other region.
I disagree because they could have still filled their talent. They could have still filled the roster with other talent. The fact that basically Contenders Australia has 3 main orgs: Direwolves, Ground Zero, and Mind Freak. And if you're a top level talent in Australia, you bounce between those 3 orgs. And I can prove that because Kuffa has literally played for all 3 orgs, which I don't think is usually a thing. He's back on Mind Freak
now. Him and Nami,
yeah,
right?
He is. Yeah. He's literally played for all 3 orgs by now. Whereas, like, I think if you look at, I don't know much about NAEU, but I'll speak to Korea. If you're like a guy like Proper, you've literally only played an O2 and that's it. If you're Sparkle, you've literally only played Element Mystic and that's it. You've never bounced teams ever. So, there's a lot of, I guess, loyalty there, and maybe some money is involved as well, where you got a longer contract and they're maybe compensating you well enough. But in Australia, it's pretty normal that if you're a top player, you bounce between the 3 actual orgs, because I think there's only like three of the major orgs there. And yeah, Direwolves decided to pick up none of the what I would say is considered top talent. Sorry, Jake. Ground Zero and Mind Freak just got everything.
That's interesting. All right. You got 3 orgs there to follow. So Mind Freak and Ground Zero, they're having a bit of a blast though. Kuffa. I've seen Kuffa everywhere, and I also think he follows me on Twitter or something. So I just heard a lot about Kuffa.
Sure.
Yeah. I want to see Kuffa.
Have you interacted with Kuffa?
No, I've not interacted.
Oh
with Kuffa.
boy. Oh god. I'm sorry if he makes it up to the Overwatch League one day.
Seems like a great guy though. So pick him up.
I'll gas him up. I think he's generally of a player that has a main tank hero pool, he's probably considered the best in Australia.
Yeah, that is
we really need an
tank.
Australian Overwatch League team.
Did you say in NA as well?
Yeah, he did perform really well. He also, I did a lot of scouting on him prior to A sides and even B sides. He was doing a lot of queuing into circus queues, the whole thing that Carter was doing, still is doing. And I watched a lot of his games. He was phenomenal on ping as well. There's a couple players that have been playing on ping, both in NA and EU, that have been phenomenal. He definitely was a standout. This guy
might be the next Punk, maybe. He could be like the next Punk. I was going to say Adam, but Adam didn't get to play, so I'll wind back and say Punk instead. Maybe, yeah. I think he's probably considered a top potential out of Australia, if I had to say somebody.
I think it's unfortunate we didn't get to see Adam and Dank together, like on a higher level, because they were great. They played together on I think Uprising Academy for I think just one tournament last year, before Uprising Academy went like a different direction. And they were great. I loved seeing them together. They were also great characters. That's another thing that like I wish we had a little bit more of in Contenders. We don't get to see the characters as much. We don't get to see like who these people are. And there's been some really good personalities that we've kind of like touched on, but I would love to see a little bit more. Kuffa is one of those. That great guy.
I'm not trying to like toot our horn too much, but on the NAU side, we started doing those 2-3-man interviews where we'd be bringing in more than just one player. And like, look, it got hectic sometimes, but I'll be damned if you didn't get a lot more personality out of the players.
Yeah,
like it has been a real treasure getting to do that, and I'm so glad we started them.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely feels as well like, at the start of Overwatch, there was definitely this thing where like, oh, people didn't want to be on camera, they didn't, want to do content, they just wanted to compete, they just wanted to play tournaments. Like, if you're a Contenders player right now, if you have like a social media presence, if you're appearing for interviews, if you're doing content, like, you get noticed, and you need to get noticed to really separate yourself from the pack, right? So fully I agree. You love that idea.
And like you look at a player like Kaluj, right? I was talking to Corey from NRG however long ago, and he was talking about like how much the ability for a team in an org to brand themselves off of a player like that, to really build up a personality like that. It's good, not just because it's fun. It's good because it can also get you hired for reasons other than your gameplay. Not that Kaluj isn't a great player, but
it's a great player.
It's a nice add-on.
So you're saying collusion?
Moving on. Thank you, AVRL. This is why we have you here.
Great transition.
Yeah, love that. Let's talk about Europe for a little bit before we close out with North America. Europe, who has been the standout organizations
this
here?
Is easy.
I've heard about Team Peps, Ex Oblivion, a little bit here and there.
We'll say it in three. On three. 1, 2, 3. EXO.
Yeah.
It's EXO.
Okay. I think I sent you the screenshot of the Wikipedia page. Just look at B-sides. Look at EU B-sides.
EU
and
B-sides.
you will
all right.
see their group stage followed by their double elim bracket, and it speaks for itself.
Ex Oblivion, 11-0, 33-1.
Yeah.
Holy
and this is the
heckers.
thing about EU too. Look at some of these rosters. If you start like just kind of looking through, like, okay, who's on EXO, who's on Team Peps, who's on?
It's just Vancouver Titans
on the Ultimates.
It's incredible. I mean, there's some other. Yeah, the Ultimates is another team. There's so much talent in EU right now, and to have a team perform at that level is insane to me. Like, I'm still not over this performance. It doesn't make any sense. They dropped zero maps all the way through to the grand finals as well, until finally, luckily we had a game 7 in grand
just like
finals.
Powered up. I don't know what the fuck happened. Like,
insane.
It could have been so much uglier.
Love to see my guy Shockwave succeed though.
Dude, Psycho and Shockwave are cyberbullying kids down here. I have no clue what they're doing. Is it, like,
do you feel like Psycho got a bit of a raw deal on Vancouver Titans?
Oh, like, hell yes, he got a raw deal.
Big time. Yeah.
Because I know what went down for him getting removed from that roster.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it was fair.
You got some juice over there? All right. Okay. We're not gonna dive into it.
I just don't share it, but I just say that, but I don't share it.
They're both definitely contenders to just like pop right back up. They need the right team to succeed in, right? And Vancouver clearly like just wasn't that, I guess, but like it's clear under the right conditions, they are way too good to be here right now.
I think another name on that roster that people probably don't give enough credit to is Heurix. I think obviously people are gonna know Heurix from previous Overwatch League seasons.
Yeah.
He's definitely a candidate for someone to go and scout and pick back up and bring him back into the league, because he's been phenomenal ever since he came back to Contenders through and through. I mean, he's been a top performing support player, and you're talking about going up against other support players in that role like Dala and stuff. I mean, Dongoon is another name that I'm gonna keep bringing up. I don't know if we're gonna keep bringing up, but I'm gonna keep bringing him up. That, I mean, Heurix still stands very well against all those different players in EU, and I would say this region is probably the most packed talent out of the two. In terms of just like who is ready for Overwatch League, there's a lot of players I could like probably raise my hand for.
That's interesting, because we usually have this thing where like organizations, they'd rather pick up the 18-year-old who has like maybe potential to be something insane. Whereas Heurix, I mean, he's been around the scene for such a long time now.
23.
He's been in Contenders. He's only 23, but like he's been on Boston Uprising. He's been back in Contenders. British Hurricane had that season where it didn't go too well in the Overwatch League again. So like he's always been back and forth. But you're essentially making the case
is not
that
a retirement home.
Yeah.
It looks like
players.
I meant it from the perspective. I think a lot of people would consider 23 to be old for the Overwatch League.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah. Like I mean, people like 23, time to retire. Can't pay 23 gone.
23, if I'm not mistaken.
Would Heurix be like maybe would he be the first player, if he was to go back to the league, would he be the first player to like dip down twice? Like he started in the league, went to Contenders, came back, went to Contenders again, and comes back again. Would he be the first player to
know that?
Ever go back up?
No, I don't think Paintbrush.
Because we've seen players go from league to Contenders back to the league, but we haven't seen them do that like twice.
Yeah. The guy's a gamer. You got to hand it to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting. I think people hesitate sometimes to give credit to players who like, have done that trip from Contenders to Overwatch League and, trying to make it back up again. Because as I said, like, I think people have this, presupposition about like known quantity and like stuff like that. But if Kellis has been popping off for Oblivion, like I genuinely hope that he gets another shot. And like we've seen time again how valuable it is to have a veteran kind of main support player, right? So
yeah, I think his longevity is inspiring. Like to have been in the league, out of the league, back in the league, and out of the league, and still grinding through and still being on a top team and performing well. I mean, that's insane to me. So props.
Also, SG God is playing in this region, so like, I mean, to be able to contend with players like that as well, just like for this long of a period of time, insane. Just insane.
I mean, yeah, we should also mention teams that aren't EXO. As much as EXO is like that shit out of their mind good, like you said, the region's stacked with talent. Like you brought up Peps earlier, Johnny. Obviously, it's like a really easy team to like point at and be like, "What the hell is that?" Because yeah, what the hell is that? You're talking about a team with like Logix, Naga, Ben Best, and FD God on it, and it is just stacked to the brim. And I mean, they are about as good as they sound. EXO is obviously an outlier in like being able to dominate them pretty regularly, but Peps really does back it up. And if you're looking at players that could make their way back to the league, there's definitely a few of them there. And then I think other teams to mention, O1 is always floating around. I thought One was not O1 the team, but One the player was like a real delight to watch this season. And then the Ultimates were also a mentionable team that disappointed, unfortunately.
Who?
The Ultimates, yeah. So
that roster is so stacked. I still can't believe how they did.
Just to touch on O1 Esports, you don't have to like go back to it or anything like that. I think the big thing with O1 Esports is the fact that Yazan's on that team. When you play against a team that has Yazan on the roster, historically, that is a nightmare matchup. This dude in the past, he only played Pharah, and typically teams would be like, okay, well, you just played a counter Pharah, and it's like, okay, it's a done deal. But this guy is so good on Pharah. I mean, he had 7 out of the top 10 solo queue spots just with alt accounts. This dude is genuinely so incredible. And over the last, I would say 2 years, he's morphed his hero pool as well. So now he's got a ton more heroes in his hero pool.
Now he also plays Echo.
Yeah, it's
that's double, AVRL. I'll have you know.
And you know what? If he can copy another Pharah, he will. God damn it!
We've witnessed that.
We've literally seen that.
It happens very often.
Well, I would say that he is quite formidable on pretty much every projectile at this stage.
He's getting there.
And he's a nightmare to play against, because even if he plays Pharah, you can't just assume that you're going to be able to counter him out. He has he plays very into well all the counters.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very scary. And the thing about O1 Esports now is that they don't need Yazan to win as well. They can actually bench Yazan and put out UB and Quartz, and they still get wins.
Yeah, and then, I mean, I mentioned One earlier. Has also been just instrumental to that team.
Yeah. But anyways, to go back over to the Ultimates, I just wanted to kind of give them the credit that I feel like they deserved. So the Ultimates, this is a team that I would say defined by a lot of the talent that they have on the roster. I mean, everybody on this roster, I think as an individual, you could go through and say, this person is probably ready for Overwatch League. I mean, Lolzish and Alex, I would say without question. Dala and Xerath, I would say without question. You can have conversations about the DPS. I would say that personally, I would lend them my like seal of approval personally as DPS players. And they also have great coaching staff as well. I mean, John and Empress are probably 2 of the top coaches, I would say, in NA and EU at this point, because a lot of the other coaches have moved up, like Faustus, for example. But they just underperformed. I don't know what the reason was. I don't know if it was just bad reads on the meta and how to play the meta. I talked to John about it.
We really just kept every week on broadcast. We'd be like, we think there's signs of it getting better, and it just didn't, which was sad for that team, because like you said, I'm rooting for a lot of these people.
Yeah, everybody on that roster from top to bottom, like coaches included, you want to see succeed for sure.
All right, I feel like you did a pretty good job with the EU. What I like about Europe as well, it's like there's so many like names that always show up year after year. Like even like Raspberry Racers. I'm just like, I can't get enough of this logo. Like it's the best, like the best logo in Contenders. So like I'm always going to root for these guys. Gustav has been here forever as well. So like there's so many known names, and I do feel like a lot of people, they're like, oh, European Overwatch is dead or whatever. But every time I go look at the page, like it's very much alive. There's so many like great teams here, and players still participating in this region. So, choose Money Crew even, like it does feel like it's a really fun region to follow.
Gotta give a shout out to Fefe as well for putting together Peps and all that, right? Like brought on the French fan base was kind of already there, but really kind of riled them up and like used a little bit of that EU sports brain to make some really devoted fans that weren't just for Team Peps, right? You had fans getting more devoted to their teams because there were devoted fans for Team Peps. And also shout out the French broadcast that literally just followed Peps through the entire tournament, which was great comedy.
Previously, that was just like 01 or like whichever team Yazan's on. It has like a massive following.
Yeah.
Massive Saudi following, and it's awesome to see in the chat. But Peps brought like a different angle to it this year, which was really awesome to see as well. So
yeah, I mean that was one of the unfortunate things, right, about Paris Eternal now allegedly rebranding to Las Vegas Eternal is like the French fan base has historically been very passionate about Overwatch and like really into it, and like even in other scenes as well, like French League of Legends and like all this stuff, like Counter-Strike. So a bit unfortunate in that regard.
Now they have to follow the London team.
Yeah,
imagine being French and having to follow the UK team.
Yeah, no, Spitfire.
That one hurts.
Yeah. I should rename it European Spitfire and just represent all of Europe. Why not at this point?
Every other team gets a city. This team gets a whole continent.
Yeah, just give them the continent, dude. Just give them the continent. Let's head over to North America and sort of wrap up here when it comes to organizations. There's one team in particular that stands out, but still a few returning names. Wait, which team has really stood out in the North American region this year?
Do we need to do the on 3 again thing?
Yeah,
it was kind of cute. Yeah,
okay.
Give it to us. Hey.
1, 2, 3. Odyssey. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh. Okay.
Wait, what were you looking at, Johnny?
I think he was gonna say Redbirds.
They're doing all right, but like
they're the second team. The thing about Redbirds right now is that they are probably the most. I would say between them and Odyssey, they're the most consistent teams. What you say about Redbirds could probably be said about Odyssey as well, to be honest, but I think in a different facet. Redbirds is a fantastic team. One of the things that we love about Redbirds is that it's completely org-based. So a lot of what they're doing is they're able to plug and play different players. They're a collegiate team, obviously, so that's really cool to see. They've been consistent in the collegiate sphere as well. But the thing that I think is most impressive about Redbirds is the fact that not only are they bringing in all these different players and continuously performing at a high level and getting like first, second places and everything, but also I would say that everybody that goes on to Redbirds seems to exist or come out of that team not just a better player, but like a better teammate. Like Gig is a perfect example for this. I would say that there are probably players that played with Gig in the past, and I don't mean to bring this up to throw him under the bus, because there's a very positive note at the end of this that I think that people would be like, okay, maybe there was some things that held Gig back. I would say a lot of those things are gone, and he is a great leadership personality on a team. I think virtually anybody would love to have them or have him on their roster for Overwatch League now. Like genuinely, I think Gig is phenomenal, plays quite well, and really good guy to talk to. I think he's a great teammate, and a lot of that can be credited to Redbirds and Gig as well personally. But that's the thing about Redbirds, is that all those players do tend to seem like better for that opportunity.
Yeah.
As a player and a teammate.
I think we'll bring up at some point later, talking about teams being good outside of individual play and really bringing like brains and teamwork to the table. Redbirds is that team. Like this is definitely a team that is so much better as a sum of its pieces, which is made more incredible by the fact that its pieces are like a rotating door to the Overwatch League.
Let's just go ahead and like everybody put your chips in for Lethal. If there's a player that you probably don't know of but you should know, is like Vision for sure is on my list personally. One of the most clutch players I've ever seen.
If I see that guy tilt swap Hanzo in the Overwatch League, I'm gonna lose my brain.
For some reason, Vision, first of all, Vision Live, his actual name. I don't know why he dropped the live. That's tough. But either way, when the overtime wick is like ticking down, this man is like plugging in a thumb drive or something. I don't know what it is, but dude just only hits heads when it's overtime. And he has literally turned games, like specifically on New Queen Street. He is literally known for just absolutely dominating in overtime to the point where they can win like 3 team fights in a row and come back from like 50-meter deficits on New Queen Street. And not just once, but like 3 times.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like he sees his team begin to lose, mutes his comms, swaps Hanzo, turns on music, and just walks out of spawn and says like, "I'll do it myself." You know? Yeah, it's wild what that guy does.
I mean, I'm not gonna name names, but we have a few of those players in the Overwatch League as well.
Yeah.
So you know, I'd welcome one more in Vision if that's the case. All right, but let's jump over to Odyssey then, which is the actual team of the year. You know, I'm just ignorant. I don't know what I'm talking about. Odyssey has been selected as the team of the year.
I'll hop on this to start things off. Like this team started off in A sides looking absolutely incredible. I mean, you're talking about a team that had a support line that was just ridiculous going into things. And then B sides came, they added Vega and CJ on, and now I do not think there's anything that could top this roster. Like I think especially like the support line before was incredible. Adding Vega and CJ, like you've doubled down. Zira filled out the DPS position. Like you can look at the tournament results; they speak for themselves. The last 2 A and B sides, this team has just been up there, and it doesn't feel like it was just a Jotes thing for them.
Know what the funny
it is
thing
a team
this?
that meshes so well.
Here's the funny thing about Odyssey too, is that you see a lot of the players that have moved up and they've gone to Paris Eternal, and people I think are eyeing those players now and saying, oh, those were actually some really, really great players. They have, you know, some decent synergy, and you know, they mechanically can hold up to the league. But the funny thing about Odyssey is that regardless of those players, Odyssey was widely considered as tree diff. Like tree is the reason why Odyssey or is rather considered the reason why Odyssey has been so successful this year. Tree has been that player that has kind of filled in for, again, that power vacuum where previously you saw players like Speedily just absolutely dominate every matchup. Obviously, Sam was doing quite well for some time there as well. But with Hydron and all those top players that have gone on to the league and are now, you know, doing quite well there, Tree is the one that has stepped up and become that guy in this region where it doesn't really feel like anyone can go 1-1 with Tree. So, unfortunately, he's 15 and we'll never see him for like
I was just
3
about
years,
to say that. He's 15 years old.
Yeah.
And you're saying that like this guy could just play in the Overwatch League as
everyone probably.
Yeah, 100%. And like this is, that's not to say like this roster without Tree still probably competes with Redbirds.
Yeah.
And then you add Tree and it just puts them in like not a tier of their own, but like one more past that. It's not fair.
So you compared him to Speedily. Do you think that's a good comparison?
I would say he's not quite at Speedily's level at this time, but again, he's 15, a lot of time to develop. He's on one of the top rosters right now. I think he'll continue to be on the top, one of the top rosters in A, just by virtue of, you know, him being on that roster, whatever roster it may be. But I think also Odyssey is a team that's going to wind up sticking together as long as they don't get picked apart by Overwatch League. Rhino is another player that's probably going to stick around for quite some time because he's young as well.
Wow, what a pick right there. Thank you, Rhino.
Yeah.
Rhino's been around for a long time now, you know?
Rhino's almost Overwatch League, isn't he?
Yeah, 16.
In there.
He's 16,
He's got one more season, right?
Yeah,
he's 15, so,
I remember he won on his birthday, so
yeah.
That's nice.
But Odyssey, a lot of these players should stick around unless they do get pulled up, and I think there is some consideration that they will probably get pulled up at some stage. I don't know when, obviously, but yeah, Tree is a player that I would say not quite. I don't think you could say at Speedily's level, because coming into the league, Speedily was heralded as like, okay, is he going to be NA's answer to Proper? Okay, maybe we. Some people
you're banned from comparing people to Proper. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Speedily had to wait to play, didn't he? Like, wasn't there like an awkward? Like, I think that does affect it pretty significantly. Like, that's a rough situation.
We'll see next year, very likely. But I think Tree is probably on a level below, but has tons of time to develop, and he's incredible this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he became one of those talents where, you know, once he does become of age, that okay, we're going to talk about him in the same light as Speedily. But at this point, I want to give respect to Speedily and what he did, and say that Tree still just has time to develop, and he's good now. But
my only Tree story is I met him at our finals. He comes up and he's like, "I'm Tree." I'm like, "Oh, I'll see you in 5 years." That was our conversation.
Yeah. I actually had a fan of Contenders come up to me and start talking to us about Contender stuff, and he was like, "Yeah, my favorite player is Tree. Can't wait for him to be in the league." And I was like, "Ooh, that's I have a tough pill for you to swallow." He was not aware that Tree was gonna have to wait a couple of years.
Damn. All right, I'm going to take a sidebar here, just quickly. I'm going to ask for your take here, and you can be however nice you want and however rude you want. Do you feel like Paris Eternal picked up the right roster mid-season in the Overwatch League? Or do you feel like some of these other players should have been given the shot instead?
Heurix definitely knows more about this than I do.
Okay, Dor has refrained.
Look, I got brought onto NAU starting with Overwatch 2, so like, yeah, it's not my place to speak.
I think that's a tough call to make. I think certainly if you're going to bring in players that have existing synergy, if that was the goal, then you probably made the right move. Odyssey, what was Odyssey at that point, was probably your best go if you wanted players that were going to instantly do well together. You already had Dove and Wub on the roster, so bringing in players that have played with them to kind of assimilate very quickly and easily to at least have a decent performance to round out the rest of the year, to get everybody's morale back up. I think that was a good move. In terms of individuality, yeah, there's some players that I think should at least have been in the conversation, and I'm sure they were. But yeah, if you wanted that like instant plug and play, Odyssey was probably the
While we're talking about it, I sent you that one Odyssey clip, Johnny. If you want to pull it up.
All right.
Like this is a team, and this is, I think, what highlights what I think has made NA so special this year has been like, I feel like NA has been playing some extremely smart Overwatch. Like this is a team that feels like they can just read the brains of the opposing side, calculate 30 moves ahead of what they were thinking, and manipulate the fight. So it's like, I think at the end of this clip, I say it's just checkmate. There is zero way to win this fight. Nobody's dead, but Odyssey has already won. Positionally, ultimates-wise, they came in completely even and wiped the floor with them without there being a question and without a player dying on either side. You knew who was going to win the fight. And that's how clear Odyssey are starting to make it. For like, this is the team, not just individual mechanics-wise, but I think, again, NA brain-wise, which is not usually a compliment. But yeah, a really smart team on top of being strong roster.
I want to ask this question as well. So, a lot of jokes, we talked about that already through that year. We just saw the footage as well. Who is a team, and let's pick one team per region. Doesn't have to be the best team, doesn't have to be the worst team. Just has to like pique your interest overall. What is one team you want to see not in the Jotes meta? Like whatever's on the horizon, probably a ton of Sojourn, whatever. Just pick any team that like piques your curiosity. Who it is? Dor already has the answer. What is your final answer?
All right. Heurix. We need to resurrect them. Bring back GeForce.
You're alone on that one. I mean, I love GeForce, but that's not the team I would have chosen.
No. So GeForce played in between Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 in the kind of off season when not many teams were playing. There's a team built around Strider, and they just had insane synergy. And I was so excited to watch them because they got their little contender spot, and then Jotes happened. And then Jotes happened again. And this ball-based team just did not get to do anything fun, despite being what I thought was one of the most exciting rosters coming into Overwatch 2. And now they're all disbanded in different places. And
okay, I'm talking about going into 2023, A nice little shout out, but going into to run it back. Because remember, this like it's already live. Contenders is already happening. So, we're in the past.
So we have to pick a team that actually exists in the next tournament.
I was gonna say Timeless, but
well, who knows about the roster? To be honest, this was an unfair question because the roster might get posted and everything.
The answer for me is none because I'm seeing all the same teams playing running back anyway, and so I'm like I get to have that question. How does this team look outside of Jotes? Well, we're literally seeing it now. So
I think it's easy for Europe. Yeah, I think it's easy for Europe because obviously EXO has done well. We expect Peps to be pretty decent, but I think the easiest one is Young and Beautiful for me personally. And I would say between Young and Beautiful and Sheer Cold would be the two I'm most excited about, assuming Sheer Cold has Dongun. Basically, whoever has Dongun, that's the one I'm most excited for. I just want to see this player develop. But I would say the easy answer would be Young and Beautiful because that's basically the ultimates have moved over to Yab. Yab is a long-standing pillar of EU. has been in the region for a long time, supporting the region. And it's a lot of those players that, again, as we mentioned earlier, have, I would say, underperformed a little bit this year, given their expectation. But I expect that they will be able to rebound.
And they brought the
going into
coaching
run it
staff
back.
as well, did they not? John's with them, so like
I don't know if Empress is like official, but
Yeah,
I
I don't
imagine
know about
Empress has a
them.
hand. Empress has a hand in every team, it feels like. So like she'll probably be involved
And-
in some capacity with
Hey,
Yab.
and,
I'm not
when
sure
you
though.
when you think about it, Young and Beautiful was the team that picked up the GeForce roster. So this is kind of like
And then
it's Soul
they
living
all
on.
and then they disbanded immediately. So yeah, that's tough.
No, it's the same. It's the same.
All right. Let's move on from the teams now because we're already going pretty long. It's Plat chat, no surprise here.
What about China?
Oh wait, I'll shout out the one. Okay, HXLC
Into
or
China.
HLXC over in China, which is Kaylee October, Liga Salvation, and Cold J. They feel like the
Do you mean October 2 and October 3?
I got this.
think that's
Yeah,
what those
yeah,
are.
they feel like one of the old like hair metal bands that like comes back to tour and just like yeah, they're gonna like people are gonna show up and watch their show, so they're gonna be pretty successful. But like, I don't know, they seem like they're just having a good time winning.
Let me get into China, guys, real quick. I got dabble in a little bit of China here and there.
All right.
And you know, we're gonna talk about China because this will be the last time we get to talk about China. And you know what? I think the timing of Contenders Pacific coming back is really good because something has to replace China next year.
Give it all you got, Davrook.
Goodbye, China. We enjoyed you while you lost. No, I don't know. Maybe. That's it.
That's
no,
tough.
HLXC, like Dor said, they obviously won. The team I had my eye on the most was Solus Victorian because they had all the ex-Overwatch League players like Milano and Crystal Wailing. That's right, Crystal still out here. He out here. He gaming.
Mulan
like the
Ran.
Mulan
Mulan
He's still
Ran
out
on
here.
support.
Well, Mulan Ran's a good time to watch. I think Mulan Ran amongst
Wow,
like
this might
DPS
be a new
players in
checkmate post.
that category. Oh my.
That's a new chicken.
I would say Milan was one of my favorite players to cast when I was casting China.
Yeah.
Loved watching him. So I'm excited by a lot of the Chinese players. I think even going back as far as like Night God back in like 2018 was like really fun to watch as well.
Still there.
So yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about for China, assuming that those players can compete. I hope they can.
It's been mostly the same players floating around the top. I think that the problem for China always ends up being there's limited places for them to go because nobody outside of the Chinese teams are willing to really pick them up. And even then, you know, within the Chinese teams, Guangzhou had been mostly Korean for some time until they started getting the Ultra Prime guys. Hangzhou has been fairly Korean for a while outside of a few pieces, right? So it just haven't been that many opportunities for these guys. Shanghai is like, aside from Mali, there's just been no Chinese players on that team. So unless they can get onto Hunters, they can't go anywhere.
I mean, we're joking, you know, a little bit because, you know, at the time of this recording, like the NetEase news broke this past week, of course, so we have no idea what's going on at the time of recording with the Chinese region going into 2023. But like last offseason, I was so fucking in on China. I was like, they're having their moment right now. This region is popping off. Like they have some incredible players, and you know, some of that got elevated into the Overwatch League.
Yeah, once they got up there just wasn't anything to fill the boot.
Yeah, somewhere a little bit disappointing. And, you know, Hangzhou Spark had a good run in the end with some of those players from that region. So, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's very unfortunate because there used to be a ton of talent like in this region as well. And it seemed like it was finally coming together for them, and then we don't know what's happening in 2023. So here's hoping that like all these players like find a home and they're able to consistently play and compete still, because it'd be a huge loss, an absolutely huge loss to the Overwatch scene, not only in the Overwatch League and whatever happens with that, but you know, the contender scene as a whole, and growing some of that talent. There's a lot of talented players in that region, so we hope it continues in some capacity and able to find a way. All right, but let's jump into the players now. I want to discuss who are some of the best players in each region. So, you know, we already talked about 3 to some extent in the North American region. So let's just kick it off there in North America and quote unquote run it back. 3 picked out as this, you know, perhaps the next Speedily of the North American region. But if you're tuning into Contenders in 2023, or in December 2022, who are some of the standout players that you're like, this this is like a big name. This is a future star player. This is someone who's having a real good time in Contenders right now.
I mean, I think there's a strong number one right now, at least amongst the NA and EU casters. CJ has been a highlight in the past 2 tournaments on both Wisp and once joined Odyssey. Like, elevated both teams and was playing alongside Vega both times. Vega also doing incredible. I think, you know, support players are one of those things that Contenders really aims to highlight enough. I think, you know, like, it's hard, you know, when you want like the most action to have them on, but especially as casters, I think we are trying to give them the attention they deserve, because while it's not clicking heads, CJ and Vega have done incredible. I was farming some of those clips that I sent you earlier for the broadcasts for this, and I was looking at CJ and Vega on Wisp and on Odyssey, and of the 4 VODs I found of them, they played Circuit Royale all 4 times. And then I realized they won all of these. And then I went through all the VODs, and I'm like, I can't find a VOD of CJ and Vega losing Circuit Royale. I think they're 100% through A and B sides on this map.
That's a fun fact. Love that.
Yeah. Like,
if you want to improve on Circuit Royale, pick up Vega and TJ. They got it.
Dude, these 2 are psychopaths of peel. Just absurd management of the opposing team's DPS and anyone trying to aggress onto their team. You know, double main support is obviously a strength for them, and I want to see how specifically Odyssey does in a meta where that's not really the case. But right now, you're looking for main supports. These are D2, and they are highlight players through and through.
Well, CJ is actually a flex support player, technically. That is actually his role.
Yeah, a flex support player that put up the best brig that we saw in B sides, but you know,
that's
which is
fair.
a huge boon. I mean, that is almost like expected now of some flex support players in OWL, right? So
I will say with CJ, a fun fact for him would be, I think it was 2021. I want to say it was the last term or the second to last. He posted one of the wildest stat lines I have ever seen. He had something like 17k healing per 10 and like 4k damage per 10 in the same game as BAP, which is absurd. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. And it was a long game too. It wasn't like that was just like a short game and he just like bursted all that stuff out. Like it went, I think it was on Volskaya, but it was insane. And he has actually been better this season, I would say, than he was even in 2021, which is obviously a good sign. You don't want to see a player stay stagnant or regress, obviously, but CJ certainly is a standout for me. Absolutely. And by definition, he is a flex support, but he is one of those support players that can kind of play everything. I don't know if I would put him on Lucio or Mercy at this point, but outside of that, he would be great on anything else.
I think to pad out the like 5 play, and not I say pad out here with some big quotation marks on it. Like we mentioned Kuffa earlier. Obviously, I think it's got to be on this list.
He's
if
Australia
not, like,
now. We lost him, man.
Oh, that's right.
I'm claiming him for the other regions portion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
we have lost him.
He's been drafted.
He is gone.
Unfortunately. Next. All right.
I would say if I was going to throw out a couple names, and we don't really have to like really talk about them too long, would be wherever Simple winds up. We still claim him as NA for right now, but you know he'll probably wind up somewhere else because of Uprising Academy not being a thing.
He's in Korea right now.
Yeah, so he's probably someone that should be talked about at some point. I think he's SLT. He's on right now.
You know what? You can't watch. Yeah. Okay.
He'll be 18 next season. I think he turns 18 in December, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, you have it up.
By the time this episode, I don't know. So maybe around this time.
He, to me, is like as close as you can get to a carbon copy of Iris, however you want to say his name. That he is like one of those guys that comes in, phenomenal player, but mostly comes in as an asset to the team, as like one of those players that just everyone on the team loves. Like everybody on the team is going to love Simple, and he's going to be mechanically strong as well. Why wouldn't you want someone like that? And then aside from Simple, I mean, wherever Arrow ends up, Vision, Lethal.
I can't believe you haven't said Rymazing yet.
And the last one I was going to mention was going to be Rymazing. Rymazing is this guy that kind of came out of nowhere. He played some other games in the past. Has a history on I don't even remember what the games were. It was Halo and Splitgate, if I'm not mistaken, that he was like #1 on both those games. And then all of a sudden came in and was just the craziest sojourn, was on this kind of what was assumed to be like a middling kind of team, like a newer roster with some talent that nobody really knew about, and just carried lobbies like on his back, in his backpack, and made life hell for teams that were significantly better than his team, I would say. Obviously, his team is doing well right now as a whole, but Ryan Mazing is a big part of that, big factor.
Yeah, at some point, I think later on in the season, we just started calling him the Soul Collector.
Yeah,
because he would just, he gets one kill. It takes him a little bit. He looks average. He gets one kill, and then he gets a second, and then the third one happens, and then by the end of the 5-map series, you've got someone who's just like team wiping regularly between every fight. It's so weird, the momentum that he builds, but I tell you, if it becomes consistent, this guy's going to be a threat.
All right, I feel like how many names for that? 2, 3. That's like 4. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
math. Yeah. Good to know. Now, I want to get AVRL in on the conversation. So we're actually, before we get to Europe, let's actually get Korea in here. Now.
Wait, we didn't just do Europe?
No, we'll get to Europe later. I want to get you involved here, AVRL. You know, because I'm excited for this too. I'm going to ask you your 5 players in the Korean Contenders region. But you're not allowed to say Max or Hisang.
Why not?
Because they're probably not going to be in Contenders next year.
Yeah, but people got to know about it.
Okay. All right.
Damn it, now I have to look at Wikipedia again and find 2 more names. I had a list.
He's going through withdrawals, Johnny.
You got to make me look at 2 more names now. God
Let him say it, please.
Okay, go on. How talented is Max? How could he be a role star next year? Like, what's going on here?
He's going to be the MVP, role star, rookie of the year, coach of the year.
Oh, no, he's doing it again,
finals
man.
MVP, grand finalist.
If you think we talk too much about Proper, wait till you hear about Max. No, I'm obviously
the most
kidding.
important award that's more important than all those combined, AVRL's favorite player award.
The AVRL's favorite player award leads to all those other awards, though. That's the thing.
Thanks, Heurix. Based. Actually based.
There we go.
People say that I don't like the other roles, so now I'm going to be as infuriating and insufferable as possible by going all in on a tank play and just see how people respond to that. Right?
I like that. Yeah.
AVRL is biased towards deep. Now I'm going to be insufferable about a tank play, you motherfuckers. How do you like that?
We love a good AVRL straw, man. Feels good, man.
No, okay. Memes aside, I think I put out a tweet recently. I saw the tweets start going up. It's happening in the preseason tweets. I think Max is, in my opinion, the #1 prospect out of Korea. All roles, across every single role, just in generally as a player. Obviously, tanks have a very important role to play in Overwatch 2. We saw how big of an impact Hanbin had this year. And Max is already a player that had been talked about for a while. I think anyone that paid attention to Contenders Korea even last year, you saw Max in that off-tank position. You're like, this is probably the best off-tank in Korea currently. I believe he was underage at the time. Should probably check his age.
He's 17. He's about to turn 18.
Yeah, he was underage at the time. The Max Jimin combo was nutty. And I remember these guys actually came out of nowhere as well, because when a bunch of players went up and would look at the next class of players coming in, we're like, Max and Jimin, okay, see how they do. Slowly started to get in there, and then eventually it's like, holy shit, these two are really insane. Jimin is still too young. I believe he's 16. Okay, no, he's 17, but he's not going to be old enough for AL next year. So that being aside, then Max really is the next person. I think that across the board, though, I will say part of this is also that Max really is the best for me, but the other tanks aren't really impressive. When I look across the tanks for Contenders Korea, Kleston for a while was looking pretty reasonable. But now T1's in a weird spot where Ding Kong left the team and Kleston's had to move into DPS. So he's not even on tank anymore. And then the other tanks are just they're okay. I think Jasmine's okay. I think 2U's okay. 2U's still, by the way, hanging around. He's still in there grinding. So one thing is Max is kind of the only option left, but also just so happens I think he's also the best option. I just think he carries him. If you watch one of the more recent games he played, his Sigma is phenomenal for what it's worth. I remember there was there was some talk inside San Francisco Shock and this year. And Kaluj is obviously, he's a Sigma dude. I think like most people would associate Sigma as being his best hero.
Yeah.
He would tell you it's his best hero as well. And Kaluj would even give a shout out to Max. Like, so they had that conversation. It was like, you know, like who else is like better than me at Sigma? And I remember the team, the O2 players, and Kaluj saying like, yeah, maybe Max actually. So not even they weren't even talking about Overwatch League players. They're just like maybe Max is like someone comparable. Just to really put it out there. But yeah, Max has expanded his hero pool to the main tanks as well. If you look at any of the O2 games, O2, by the way, during the Run It Back tournament so far, they're undefeated. They're 5-0 plus 15, haven't lost a single map. They might have a perfect season, legitimately, and they have not lost a single map. That includes against the second best team, Panthera. Panthera did not take a single map off O2. So the next best team after O2 can't even touch O2. And part of the diff coming through is just how much better Max is than every other tank in Contenders' career at the moment.
Max diff.
That's kind of like where my position on Max comes from. He's just that much better than everybody else in the entire region.
All right.
I think you could probably go beyond the region for Max. I think he might actually be in the conversation for best prospect just in Contenders.
Yeah, I think so. I think he is maybe the best player coming out of Contenders, generally speaking.
Yeah. But while you were on the topic of tanks, you did mention all the other tanks in the region as well. I do want to hit one player this year who had a bit of a tough year in the Overwatch League, but that was Kellan, who came out of Korean Contenders last year. And, you know, we were hyping him up. We did that rookie draft on Tactical Crouch. It was really fun. Yeah. And like Kellan was like one of the only main tanks to really like get out of the region. How would you compare some of these tanks to Kellan? Do you think Kellan got a bit like unlucky with his role on the Excelsior, especially forced to play so much Zarya, right? When he's primarily like a Winston ball kind of player.
Yeah.
How do you think? Do you think Kellan deserves another shot in the league, or do you think maybe, you know, he could spar with some of these guys again?
I don't think we've seen the best of Kellan. I think his situation on New York was a little unfortunate. New York as a team was just not really good overall. Despite having talented individuals, their team didn't mesh, and they just had problems. The team was not able to find success for a number of different reasons. Also, just limited options in terms of players, and
it's like the Hardy situation, right?
Certain metas just could not. I think Kellan is a little comparable to Hardy last year in a way.
Yeah.
Just, and here's the other problem with tanks is you look way worse as a tank when your team's bad.
Yep.
You look like a feeder when your team is bad, straight up. So tanks have a rough go of it when your team in general is performing poorly. You look the worst. I think having seen Kellan at his best, I still think there's so much of Kellan that we did not get to really appreciate based on his situation from New York this year. So I would actually still give Kellan another shot, personally.
All right. So we talked about Max. Give us a few more players in the region.
Yeah. Let me blast through 4 names. I'll talk about some of them.
Ironically, blast. I mean, do you want me to pull up the page or?
Well, the next 2 players are from Blast. It's Heesang and Blitz. And I got Top Dragon and Alien. So you want to talk about Heesang?
You just fucking flipped the bucket. Just got all of it at once. All right.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had the list prepared. That's why when you're like, no Heesang Max, I'm like, well, fuck, man, I gotta go.
You gotta remake my list. Yeah,
my list that I prepared.
Okay.
If I had to pick another player beyond that, I'd just probably go somewhere like Simple. You guys already talked about Simple a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I still think Sanguiner is not bad. I don't know. He didn't get picked up for this year, and maybe I don't know what that reason is. I still think he's a reasonable player. Next actually did really well earlier this year as well. I think Next is a player that needs another look at. He's not a rookie though, but he is a player that has been performing pretty well in Korea.
Yeah, there's a couple of those names, right? That sort of like been in out and never really quite been able to like make the leap, but like they're so good in Contenders that you're like, I kind of wish I saw this player now.
Like Next and Jotes was actually nasty. The dude's Genji was actually freakish.
That's awesome.
He was surprisingly good, and I don't know. I thought Next was like kind of moving towards being a bit washed, but then he just pops off. I don't know. So yes, Heesang is obviously the other name. He's probably the more well-known name because he built most of his reputation off challenging proper, and now that's obviously when you can do that. That's obviously going to help you a lot. He played on Talent Esports last year versus O2, and I would say that Heesang was the only player in that DPS position that had any shot of actually challenging proper and maybe taking him down. And one of those finals where they went to 7 maps, I mean, Heesang, I think it was the Busan Sanctuary. If you want an example of what Heesang can do, especially versus top level competition like Heesang versus Proper. Sanctuary, Busan last year's finals, he popped off. That's just Heesang doing Heesang things. He really does kind of remind you of Proper in that way of just being able to control the game. He doesn't have Proper's hero pool. Proper's obviously got the entire DPS pool locked down as in my opinion, a true hyper flex. Heesang's more of like a standard flex DPS. Like he doesn't really play that many hit scans. He's the Genji Tracer kind of Echo kind of guy. Like he plays all the normal flex DPS stuff at a very, very high level. And I remember seeing him all the way back in the day when he first debuted on Element Mystic, and he was super young back then. And already at like 14, 15, I'm like, this kid's going to be insane. So Heesang is definitely the top DPS prospect. Max is the top tank prospect, and the top support prospect is Bliss. It's crazy that O2 Blast have all three of those. O2 Blast have the best tank, support, and DPS prospect all in the same team.
Okay, so before we get to Bliss, can we contextualize sort of like the Heesang hype? I feel like it's, and I might, be at fault here too, because when I did my research last year, I was like, oh, Heesang definitely stands out. Like this player looks amazing. Yeah. Do you think Heesang could be one of those plug and play kind of players that like, if you were to put him in with the shock, like would he just like pop off and like compete for stage title with that team? Or do you think he's more of like, Toronto Defiant this year kind of level of player? How good is Heesang? How do you think he'd fit into the league, like quality-wise?
I mean, you could put him right next to Proper. Sam had his contract expire, right? You could plug and play Heesang into Sam's position quite comfortably, I'd say. And same with Max.
So the hype is validated.
In fact, I think Shock have clearly got exact positions open for players like this ready, right? I think it's fairly valid. I think Heesang has been the top DPS prospect for some time, especially after Proper. I even said last year, like the next best DPS talent after Proper last year was Heesang. He just wasn't old enough.
Yeah.
Right. So because he wasn't old enough, the next best after that was MN3. So now that all those guys are gone, there's no MN3, no Zest, no Proper. Well, He's the next guy. For me at least. And I think for a lot of people as well. I think most people would agree that Heesang is not only the best DPS talent, but some people would say he's the best talent overall. I'm starting to argue Max's angle a little bit more, but I think both of those are pretty interchangeable, both those players.
All right, so we got two players out of the way, and I'm sure we'll talk lots more about Max and Heesang and Plat moving forward.
Should I blast through the rest?
Yeah, let's head into start with Bliss there. You mentioned Bliss for a moment as support player for O2 Blast.
Yeah, Bliss has been around for a while. He's another one of those like young players I remember seeing, and I was like, damn, this guy's not bad. I think he actually was he played in Gauntlet, if I'm not mistaken. He's on Gen G, and he was a super young player in Gen G back in Gauntlet Asia. He also played in Gauntlet 2019.
It's been around forever. He's just been
as a very young player.
Yeah.
He's been on Gen G for. He's one of those. He was one of those guys that came through the Gen G academies. And for those who don't know, Gen G was the academy team of Seoul Dynasty. But even Gen G, the academy team, had academy teams. It was Gen A, Gen B, Gen S, and so that Gen G organization had insane scouting for young talent through just ranked and competitive play and stuff like that.
They kind of adopt the Lunatic High kind of brand as like just. They knew their shit, right? Because I think Lunatic High, they had a second team as well, and they just had immense amount of talent, Yeah,
I mean, Element Mystic also had some insane scouting as well, but there's just been a lot of good scouting. Anyway, he comes through that sort of system. Mostly a Lucio player. He's obviously developed his other roles, but I would say he's mostly a Lucio player. And he kind of, to me, follows in the footsteps of like the Lee Jae Gon into Chorong kind of level hype. Okay, people maybe you could debate how well Chorong did this year, but Toronto was also a team that existed. So I don't know. But Bliss is definitely like, I'd say he's the top support prospect out of Korea currently. And even back in 2019 Gauntlet for Gen G, it's like, I felt like this guy had really good potential on the main support. And this is the kind of wild thing about main supports as well. It's like when you can sort of remember them and really remember their highlights and remember their moments, which is a rare thing for main supports. I think that's quite standout. So he kind of gives me the sort of Chorong Chio Vin Dame kind of vibes where I'm like, he's a memorable main support player that you can very easily see impact out of, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, two more players in the Korean region. What do you got?
Top Dragon is a guy that's been floating around. He's also part of the Gen G system. I think Top Dragon is perpetually a player that for some reason feels like he's kind of like the best player on like a middling or not a very good team. He was most recently on Talon before Simpreza, and before that through Tiger Nation, which actually was another one of those like kind of Gen.G spin-off academies. I think I first noticed him on First Fabulous Fighter in Contenders China. I was like, who's this top dragon guy? He's farming. His mechanics are really top tier. And his most well-known hero is Genji. And his Genji mechanics are very good. Another moment I remember him, it was last year in Incendia Evolution, which was a pretty low-tier team. But he just happened to be on that team. And this is another one of those, like, he's one of those Yaki players where, like, somehow he just ends up carrying, like, these very middling teams. And he easily looks like the best player, but he's like kind of dragging teams across to the finish line sometimes. He just has really insane mechanics. I think he's one of those players you look at and be like, okay, well, this is actually another good comparison. He's kind of like a Choice Tier 1, right? Like you watch Guangzhou, you're like, this Choice Tier 1 guy is insane. Please give him a real team. It's kind of how I feel about Top Dragon. So I hope somebody gives him a real team at some point. He also speaks some good English as well. Well, a little bit. Like he's come into my chat on streams before and talked to me. So I'm like,
oh, that's awesome.
His English must be okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's a bonus.
A mixed roster kind of candidate as well. Not only restricted to all Korean teams, can also, you know, fit into some of those environments.
The good meme is like you'd like to see him on Shanghai Dragons, Top Dragon on Shanghai Dragons, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, good flex DPS, bit of a Genji player, one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Alien. We're starting to get into like difficult territory a little bit. Alien sort of for me, I first noticed him in Korean ranked plays, and not even how you think. It's not like I play Korean ranked at top 500. I wasn't playing against them, but every now and then it'd like sit in like an OWL player's stream, watch them play Korean ranked or like some really top level Contenders player, and this Alien guy would just pop up in these ranked lobbies all the time. And I was just like, dude, this Alien guy's always here. He's always in these lobbies versus these OWL players. And then he eventually gets picked up for T1. He's on T1 rookies, then he got picked up with T1. And he is probably across the board when you look at the hit scan players. It's Alien, Probe, and Prophet. Is Probe old enough though? Yeah, he may just be. It's either Probe or Alien for me. That's probably like the next hit scan player that you'd be looking at. There's some other reasonable hit scan players, like I think Developer's still there. Proud looks okay as well, and he's actually on loan from O2 if I'm not mistaken. But I think Alien's been more consistently considered to be the number one prospect out of those. It's not as clear cut. It's not the Max diff, like where Max is like just way better than everyone else. I think Alien is not like insanely better than Pro, but he's a good shout. The rest of the pool for hit scans looks okay. I think there's maybe a bit of a weakness in that side of the pool this time around.
Yeah, I mean, you also had players like MN3 being promoted, right? For example, Kilo, Merit. So like a lot of the hit scan players for the region has already been promoted in that regard. So Korean Contenders definitely feeling the effects of having all their great players being promoted to OWL, and now you still have some amazing talent left here, and then you're like, well, some of the OWL rookies this year are going to go back down, right? So
yeah, it's also only been 2 Contender seasons since. So like the amount of time we've had to actually see those new players come up is very little.
Yeah. All right, but yeah, love that. Got some. You have one more?
Yeah, I was going to say Simple, but these guys already talked about Simple.
Yeah.
Sad on SLT is not bad. Actually, he's a pretty reasonable player, so keep an eye on, which is to sort of check in on how he ends up doing.
Another hit scan player. I'm like, we have so many hit scan players here.
just to look at, just to sort of keep an eye on. I'd say Develop as well. We'll see if Develop ends up being a good enough player to make it back. So
yeah, I mean, the exercise here is not only like what are players that could be promoted to OWL. The exercises here is like these guys are going to show off their skills in Contenders, and like if you're tuning into games, you know what to look out for, because
who's
I think
to watch.
Yeah, one of the intimidating things if you're an Overwatch League viewer and you go to Contenders, like who am I looking out for? Who are the teams? Who are the players? So that's kind of the exercise here. Is like introduce some names to the Contenders audience, like getting into it and learning about some of these players. So I feel like people got some names now that they can definitely follow in that regard. Let's close it out with Europe and Australia, because AVRL had that name. But starting off with Europe here, who are some of the players here that people should keep their eyes on when European Contenders is underway in December?
I feel like there's too many. I genuinely feel like there's too many.
Europe has all the talent.
I think
fucking go.
I think there's some real defining players.
All
And,
right,
like there's a lot of.
here's what we're
there's a
going to
lot
do,
of
okay?
really strong talent.
I know it says 5 players on the topic bar, okay? I'm going to set
We
a
each get 5?
timer. I'm going to set
Okay.
a timer for 6. 6 minutes enough? Yeah, no, I'll give you 7 minutes. 7 minutes, and you can just talk about however many players you want. Go.
All right, or knock as many out as you can.
Yeah.
All right, no, we'll take turns. So we'll start out with Yazan, is a region-defining player. We talked about him earlier on Pharah. Has now widened his hero pool and doubled it at the very least.
I would say tripled. Is
yeah,
it, is
sure.
it fair?
We'll say tripled. He
Which
played
is
Hanzo
huge, man. I
once.
mean, tripled. Think about it.
But a region-defining player that forces everybody to do some crazy stuff. I sent you a clip of it somewhere, Johnny. But
I'll find it. I'll find it.
All right, go ahead.
Did you?
Sure, so you got.
Oh, shit.
He'll pull up
Oh, I found it, yeah.
Okay. Heurix, who do you got?
Well, I mean, I don't want to talk about someone else over Yazan. Yazan is just he's definitely one of those like pillars of EU, has been for like 2 years now, and every single team that he's been on has kind of been just like the region has been a little bit to a degree, at least in some part, defined by Yazan being there. I will say the big thing about Yazan is that his team hasn't necessarily needed him every single time, but when he is on the field, like it's very noticeable.
All the more exciting that his team doesn't need him though. Like,
yeah. Definitely. I think he could be a very interesting fixture to an Overwatch League team should someone want to take a shot at him. Obviously, the main concern is the fact that at an OWL level, in terms of preparation, there is a little bit of a debate on, okay, at that level, maybe there is a cause for concern, because once you see him on the lineup, you know exactly what's coming, or at least to a strong degree, you know what's coming, what to expect. And I think at the OWL level, that could be exploited a little bit more so than on Contenders. But he's still someone that has proven to be able to beat out very consistently all of the counters that are expected. So Yazan's definitely one. I would say another name that I would shout out, I don't know if Dora would have him on this list, is Helv. Helv was one of my favorite players back in, I want to say 2020, and then did really well last season as well, and had a couple of those big plays with Reinhardt, where they were doing like sojourn teleports into earth shatters, like behind people, like perfect timed, and setting up like charge redirects and stuff. Like that's all on Helv. Helv has been a phenomenal pillar for every team he's been a part of. Got to perform with British Hurricane when they were doing a bunch of great things, and I think has been unfortunately kind of cast aside a lot of the OWL opportunities when he has been for 2 years now. I think he was competitive with Hottie. So, I mean, look at what Hottie has been able to do and just assume, Helv should be able to do something very similar, that he has the talent for that.
I'll take another tank player right now. And honestly, this is just kind of a personal favorite, but I really enjoy watching Alex2704 play.
Yeah.
Was
fair.
previously on the Ultimates, now going in on Yab for this upcoming season. I think Alex is my favorite example of a player that's not like a highlight clutch player, but is absolutely the peak of consistency in terms of providing 100% value to the team and winning a lot of neutral scenarios. Really nice hero pool, has adapted to Overwatch 2 pretty well. And I think especially if the meta falls into his favor, like Joker Queen obviously wasn't perfect for Alex, but should any sort of slightly more off-tanky style come to fruition, Alex will be one of the best players at it.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think Alex is probably one of the more formidable tanks that has been around for quite some time. The thing about EU is that like a lot of these players have just been so good for so long that it's very easy to say, yeah, they look like they're ready. It's just that they haven't gotten that opportunity because typically EU just doesn't go to Overwatch League for whatever reason.
But
yeah, I mean, we know a few of the reasons, but I'm just saying they just haven't had that opportunity.
I mean, as someone
would say
who played for Rogue, like, I definitely, like, it's always been that way, that in North America, get the bigger viewership, have the bigger audience, and so therefore, usually get picked up in that regard. So, it is going to be very competitive in Europe for those few spots available. At the same time, though, I mean, if you're a devil's advocate, it's been hard for European players to prove themselves in the Overwatch League. I'm hijacking your segment now. I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
But like London Spitfire, an example this year, who like did really well. Like London Spitfire, of course, with Christopher, like with European talent, showed what they're capable of. But then you also, I mean, Paris Eternal, I wouldn't blame the players. I mean, the coaching situation was weird this year. But last year, you had British Hurricane getting promoted. Couldn't get anything going last year. So it's been kind of difficult for some of these players to like really make it in OWL as well. And so I think some people might have some hesitancy about like, hey, European players have generally been given a few chances. It doesn't seem like they're able to capitalize it. Some of the European players on Vancouver, for example, this year, like, so yeah, I don't want to seem like a hater, but at the same time, like these players gotta step up into OWL and make it happen as well, like get the results.
Europe feels like the old Chinese Contenders, like when they had before all the really strong players got picked up, where it was like, yeah, they're just not quite getting the chance, but there's players there that you might not expect. And like you said, like some of them are going to underperform when they get there, but some of them are also going to step up massively. I know I haven't gotten the chance to talk about Belos Rhea yet, but Belos Rhea is like not in Contenders, was not a great player. His best placement was like third. He didn't make it past quarters in all of Chinese Contenders in 2020. And then he played in T1 and like did all right. And then gets picked up and has an incredible season in the Overwatch thing. I think we're at one of those seasons, especially with EU, with the level of talent that you've got here, where there's going to be one of those players that might not have a perfect history. But given that we've only seen Junker Goats up until now, going into the Overwatch season, there's going to be one of those pickups that we haven't gotten to see, but we'll trial for a team in that way in an Overwatch 2 meta where they make a lot more sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's interesting to see
Europe's
as well
going to be where it comes from.
Where someone like get amazed if he's able to land a job in the Overwatch League. Maybe he's able to like vouch for this region somewhat and be like, hey, like, you know, I've been coaching Contenders. I had success with the Paris Eternal in 2021. Like, I know what this region is capable of. So maybe someone like Get Amazed can like help that narrative a little bit and give these players a fair shot, right? So
I hope so.
Yeah.
To be fair for Belos Rhea, it's like after, you know, someone's gone, Kellen's gone, and all those guys, like, who do you got left? So if you're T1, your Fusion, you're looking across, it's like, first of all, we already have Belos Rhea's contract. Second of all, the next best options after that is not really great players. So I think Belos Rhea ends up being a pretty good shot. I also think he's just a fairly underrated player.
I don't think he was underrated when I was watching him play. I think he was putting up some pretty poor performances in China, at least. But like in the I can't deny his impact in the Overwatch League. He's been a great tank. Like, so.
And also, if I'm the Fusion, I think I was kind of thinking as well, like, hey, Fury is going to be our primary tank, and Belos Rhea can fill in on like Winston and Ball, stuff like that, which did a great job.
They just wanted to round out Fury's hero pool with another main tank.
Yeah.
Player, so that makes sense to me.
Yeah. All right. So I hijacked your segment, but I paused the timer for a little bit. So any additional players in Europe you want to highlight? You said there's too many, and so far we got like 3. So.
I'm excited to see what Benbest does in upcoming metas. I mean, he looked really, really good in a Jotes meta. It seemed like mechanically he was just ahead of every other Junker Queen that was out there. But I'm still I don't know about you here. I'm really undecided on Team Peps and what I think and who I think is like actually Overwatch League ready on that team. Because like they're clearly good, but I just can't make up my mind.
I think talent-wise, pretty much everybody on that roster, I mean, FD God, Benbest, Logix, Naga would be like the easiest way to say, okay, obviously we've seen what they're capable of. We know that they have the capacity mechanically at the very minimum. But yeah, Peps, their performance level just like hasn't been what you would want to see out of players of that caliber. But that could very well just be a team dynamic thing. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world, but if the team doesn't just work well together, or if you have a bad read on the meta or whatever it may be. And they definitely had a very bad read on the meta in A sides going into, you know, Jotes meta and being prepared for that. And that really locked them up in a big way.
Didn't Peps get 0-1'd? Didn't they get Izand in A sides?
I believe so. They also got taken out by EXO, I think, in the last tournament. Yeah. So they had some unfortunate performances, I would say. Yeah, I think EXO'd both tournaments. So it's like there's a little bit of a asterisk there next to some of their showings because they got knocked out by what is like one of the best teams. EXO, I think at that point was obviously a little bit of a different team, but yeah, I would say Peps mechanically, pretty much all their players are great mechanically. but I don't want to look into that like too much in terms of their overall performance as a team, because that could very well be just a team thing, and you could split those players apart and they could be great. I don't know.
I mean, there was a rumor in the middle of the season that Team Peps might get picked up for the Overwatch League because they had so many like talented players on that team, right? Maybe that showing in A sides set them back a little bit and made people hesitate. But like you look at the roster in A sides, those A sides is an old roster, but still like there's some names there that
it was mostly the same in B sides. They did very well. I mean, they took it to a game 7 against a team that dropped one map all tournament and just the round robin. So Peps as a team then performed a lot better. And I think if you had that conversation after B sides, a lot more people would be on board with the Pep situation. I think a lot of the hesitancy, the reluctance in that Peps discussion was mostly on timing, just because of that performance in A sides and people kind of being unsure, can they rebound, how will they do, you know, if they can't adapt to the meta very quickly at a Contenders setting, what will they do in Overwatch League? But I just think it's a major asterisk situation. I think Peps is still a great team. I think one of the things about EU is that, like we said, with like the number of names is kind of crazy, because you could go through and just say pretty much everyone on Ultimates. You could say a couple players on Munich, like Hybrid and Danet, are definitely players. Like Danet's one of those players that just kind of got left behind, unfortunately, but has been one of the best players in EU for years now. Obviously, Shockwave, basically everybody on EXO. I would love to spend time to talk about players like Ken, because he's on a roster that is typically like a one-trick roster, but he's the guy that's like the Swiss Army knife, plays
he's the one normal person
everything.
On that roster.
Yeah, and things like Tracer, Genji, and he is able to stand up to like all of the talent in EU, which we talk about, you know, again, Logix, Naga, Hybrid, Danet, Shockwave, Psycho, all these players that are we know are good, and he can diff them at times, and does quite
Ken's
well.
Widow goes crazy, dude.
Yeah, and then the only other player that I think I would love to kind of lean into would be Dongan, but that's still one of those players that's like, you probably won't see him in Overwatch League, but watch him in Contenders, I would say.
I mean, I think Dongan's got room to grow. Like,
yeah,
he's also a player that was on that whole Boston Uprising Academy thing, and then
who was this?
Uprising Academy, or what's that?
Who was this?
Donghoon.
Oh, okay, yep.
Yeah, started off with that whole KR roster that Uprising Academy had, which then exploded, which then Arrow and Donghoon went to Timeless, who now didn't qualify, because I'm not going to blame the format, but you know, it is what it is. Didn't qualify for Contenders and are now floating around doing whatever else. So yeah, I think it's some rough waters for Donghoon, but he does have a promising future.
Yeah,
I love this because
mechanically probably the best player I've personally ever analyzed at that role. Outside of players like Funny Astro, maybe in FD God, I would say mechanically he might be on par with them.
Wow.
On things like Lucio.
I mean,
like,
well,
genuinely,
Johnny
I'm telling you,
just
blows my mind.
But you and I consistently were looking at the Carter's Circus stats, and Donghoon just dominated Circus.
Yeah, he had like an 84% win rate against other Contenders and Overwatch League players. Yeah, as a solo queue player.
Over a significant period of matches too.
I love that this guy doesn't have a Wikipedia page. He's like the only player. Like he's just this Mr.
He was like a ladder player on EU for the entire duration of everything before 2022. He like kind of just like burst in, and then all of a sudden he was playing in like the circus queues, and I started watching him, and then I started having like I'm pulling VODs, I'm watching only his POV, and I'm like, every time my jaw is just on the floor. Like he goes in and he just 1v5s, gets like an assassination as Lucio, gets out, stalls the point, allows his team to like get back. I mean, the things he's able to accomplish just off of raw mechanics is stuff that I haven't seen done from that position in a long time.
Wow. That's high praise. So it'd be
he needs the right team right now.
It'd be like a perfect kind of like candidate to slot in with like Florida Mayhem or something like that. You just like, guy comes out of nowhere, tons of potential.
I wouldn't be mad if he got up. I don't think he gets up, but I wouldn't be mad.
Obviously, I don't even know how fucking old he is because I can't look at his age. But
he'll be 18. Actually, I don't remember how old he is.
Best reason to have a Wikipedia is so you can put your age on there.
Yeah. Dongan, if you watch this, set up a Wikipedia, man. Like, get something set up. Definitely
Twitter.
That, man. I don't think he has his age on there. Someone told me his age.
If you're a Contenders player and you're not 18, put your age on Twitter, please.
Yeah.
More importantly,
that
just
is
put
unironically really important.
Yeah.
Put on when you were eligible for OWL. Just put that number in. You don't even have to put your age. Just say, I'm eligible for OWL on this date.
Please address offers to.
This is what I found, guys. I found the wrong Dongyun who played on Africa Freaks Blue in 2017. Was a tank player. All right, not quite the same one. All right, there you go. Africa Freaks Blue. Whoa, what a throwback. They beat Envy. NPC3. Look at you, Dongyun. There you go. Wrong guy though. No, that's great to hear though. Like, such a vibrant scene, European Contenders, with so many like names that people know about, and comparing someone to Funny Astro, I'm like, you know, I'm in. Now we're gonna want to go watch footage of that region. AVRL, you've been lurking. You've been lurking there. Is it Australia time?
We've already talked about all the players playing in Australia by talking about the other regions.
We kind of have AVRL, but I'm gonna give you this moment.
And you know what? By you giving me that moment, I'm going to pass it down to these guys to talk about Kuffa. How do you guys think about Kuffa?
Look, I'll apologize. Before you get there, I'll apologize because the Australian region is, or Oceanic region, rather, unproportionately like very successful in the Overwatch League with the coaches and the players, like, you know, Punk.
Very high hit rate, for sure.
Yeah. So don't sleep on the Oceanic region.
Yeah, exactly, guys.
Is Dank still playing in China, or no? Is Dank only
no? Dank is I don't know. I didn't see him on any rosters for this most recent season.
It's just the best name, like truly.
Because He's a fun player. I'll give you my 5 players. It's Kuffa, Nami, Soggy, Jacob, Nanda. Are my 5 players from Australia.
Sorry, you have to separate those names with a little bit of time so the viewers listening can like understand what you just said.
Those are the 5 players.
Kuffa and Nami you could probably do together a little bit.
Yeah. So I want to pass it to you guys a little. I will talk about them, but they've also played in NA. So, like, again, like, what do you guys feel about? What's your experience of watching Kuffa and Nami in NA?
Well, we kind of talked about Kuffa, but yeah, let's visit.
Okay, Nami then.
I didn't mean to Kuffa you off. Sorry, that was awful. That was absolutely awful.
I think that's how you're gonna follow up.
It's been 2 hours, you know. I'm losing it a little bit. Come on.
You can't follow up the Anaheim joke with that.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah. It's a rough streak.
It's been a track record. I'm not sure you can be proud of.
Who are we talking about, AVRL? Who are we talking about?
I'm trying to talk about Nami here.
Nami?
I was gonna get the NA opinion.
Yeah, so we only got to see Nami for one tournament. We've had the pleasure of seeing Kuffa a little bit more than that. He has some a good amount of friends, I would say, in NA, and he also played a lot of like the like pugs and circus cues and stuff like that. But Nami, I would say we saw a lot less of, but what we did see was a big breakthrough performance on Nyx. I think right off the bat, one of the major concerns I think when you have a player playing in a DPS role from Australia is it instantly you're over 200 ping right off the bat. And in a meta where everything's very timing based and everything is very, very reactionary, when you're talking about Jud's meta, which is what he was playing in, he still was exceptional. I mean, straight up exceptional with the ping, with the, you know, kind of, I would say to a degree, last minute kind of being thrown onto a team and kind of figuring things out. That team wasn't together for a very long time, Nyx. And they were able to kind of figure things out and do very well. I would say had a performance kind of punching above their weight as a team in NA. I think a lot of that is carried by Kuffa and Nami and their performance, but Nami as an individual, we saw a little bit of like the Cassidy stuff come out here and there. And I would say when Nami is set up with resources, that was when we saw Nami really kind of take control of lobbies. And I think, again, when you're able to do that on ping, that just speaks volumes, especially at 200 plus. That's very difficult to pull off.
He's a 3-time Contenders Australia winner. He's played for all 3 of the orgs. And he's been, I would say, last year, I would have said he was, generally speaking, probably the best player in the region. Definitely the best hit scan. He's in many ways, he's like the Australian MN3, right? Like he's like the raw hit scan player. Yeah. I'm not saying he's as good as MN3. I'm just saying like
fair enough.
I'm not saying he is an MN3. I'm just saying like he's the best hit scan player in the region and probably by a fair margin as well. And so yeah, enjoyed the fact that he tested some waters in NA. That's what the top players in AU typically do, is they'll try out NA for a little bit as well. So I'm glad he actually popped off a little bit there in terms of at least individual performance. Talked about Kuffa. Soggy is, I believe he's actually a Singaporean player. He's been a Mind Freak like the entire way through, and is a really, really good flex DPS player. This year especially, he's just had a phenomenal year, generally speaking. Very clutch, extremely clutch play. He's one of those guys, you talk about vision, right? In terms of the OT hits and the guy hits a different level. I would describe Soggy in that way as well. Tracer Echo are his probably best heroes, and then Genji as well in there.
It says Junkrat on Wikipedia. I don't know if that's right.
Well, sometimes you can't trust Wikipedia.
It is Australian Contenders. You never know.
Soggy on the Junkrat, love it.
Everybody's got a pocket junk nowadays.
It's definitely like there's not a lot of representation in Southeast Asia across like Thailand, Singapore, and stuff anymore. So he's kind of it. Like he's been like the torchbearer for Singapore and the rest of Southeast Asia for a while. He's just been a phenomenal DPS player. And you got JCap Nando. JCap is probably the best off tank. If Kuffa's like the best main tank, hero ball tank, JCap is the best off tank hero ball tank in the region. JCap is mostly known for Sigma, but yeah, I mean, he already has a couple titles under his belt as well, and he's currently on, you know, again, another top team, and I don't think he's played in NA yet. Oh, he played in Phase 2 in 2020, apparently. Just another player that's, generally speaking, pretty reasonable. And the last guy is Nando, who's another flex DPS player who likes to play a lot of Pharah. He's doing a bit of Yazan cosplay. He likes to force the Pharah sometimes as well, but is otherwise just a typical flex DPS player that has, you know, the Echo, Genji, Mei, etc. kind of stuff. And has a couple titles under his belt. I mean, all these players are pretty reasonable. Kuffa and Nami are the standouts for sure.
All right, love it. Now, we talked a lot about teams and players, but we got a few more segments here about players, okay? I've separated out individual awards here because, you know, we love award season. Love it. It's a perfect podcast meme. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to hand out some awards here. And I'll describe them quickly. So the first award that I've written down here is the Skewed Award, okay? What do I mean by this? Skewed, relatively unknown player, part of a team that wasn't particularly great. No one really knew that like Skewed was going to be this amazing player when promoted to the LA Gladiators. Imagine this to be like the penny stock, like they're, you know, the penny stock of the Contenders, where it's like no one's talking about them. So but if they're enabled on the right team, they, you know, you're like, I want to proclaim on the Plat chat, the podcast, that I was first when it came to this player. I said their name, and I'll claim the clout later in like a year or two when this player pops off. Just, I don't want to be over Wikipedia anymore, but give us like a name for each region that like you're planting your flag here. Let's do one per member. So AVRL get to pick one, Dor get to pick one, and Heurix get to pick one. Who's your picks for Skewed Award, Dor?
I'm gonna go a real deep cut here. And I think Meadow. I still don't. MEAD.
Okay, it's not good if you don't know the name. I'm just saying that, but
I've always called him Meadow.
So there's two names. So it's meter or it's mediocre. It's whichever. He probably doesn't want to hear the other one, the second, the latter very much. But
meter on the right team in the right. Like I feel like every time I watch him play, I'm like, damn, that team's losing, but damn, that guy's playing well.
And what team and region is he playing in?
I don't know right now. He tends to bounce around because he's just one of those players.
He was last on Altiora. I don't think he's on Altiora anymore, though.
Yeah.
He did play with Cryx for a little bit. Can't remember where we first saw him, but yeah, he's been around that kind of like OD scene for quite some time and has kind of now splashed into Contenders.
This is what we're looking for, guys. This is a good start.
I'm giving you like the deepest cut. Like, I wrote down like 5 or 6 names here. Some of them were freebies, but like I'm giving. No, you can give one of the freebies. I took the deepest cut I could. That's I think. Hey,
if we're talking about Meteor in a couple of years, you get to post this clip everywhere. I'm just saying.
I feel like I've already shown my cards on this a little bit too much. I feel like I should have saved my hand for later because like I would love to talk about Amazing or Dongu, and I feel like they're perfect.
Dongu, you can have him. You can have him.
Yeah, he doesn't even have a Wikipedia page.
Yeah,
Like,
he
that's
doesn't
how-
even
that's how like hidden
Yeah,
this
it
guy
doesn't get
is.
worse than that.
He's so unknown. He doesn't have a Wikipedia page yet.
Yeah, does have a Twitter
I
though.
would
Interesting
I'll
dynamic.
put my chips in. I'll put my penny in on Dongun. That's probably where I would go.
All right, love
Yeah.
that. It was soon competing for the stage titles with some Overwatch League team. Dongun. We'll see who it is. AVRL, who do you got?
Yeah. Now I could be doing the assignment correctly, but let's just talk about Max again. No, I'm kidding.
No.
I'm gonna do. This is hard because I feel like I talked about everyone I want to talk about. So
You could literally say
You
any
can
name,
give
and if
one
it
of them
doesn't
the
work
award,
out,
though. Yeah.
if it doesn't work out, who cares?
I'm gonna come out and just say Cal. I'm not even gonna say a Korean player. I'm gonna say an NA player, Cal.
Ooh.
I like
Okay.
Cal.
That's
he
a good
really
shout.
he really impressed me. He really did impress me. Most people probably don't know him, and we'll see how he does in NA contenders. I think that is a good shout. He's a flex DPS player, really solid mechanics, seems to be a good leadership figure as well. Can win contenders on 0 sleep. I mean, that's impressive.
All right. So did win the Shimada Showdown, but all right, fuck it. I'll grant it to you. You know.
He won 2. No, he won B-sides as well.
All right. Yep. There you go.
Yeah,
So
but, like,
someone who won
it's
2
Australia,
tournaments
though, you
out
know
of
what I
3 in contenders this year. That's your Skewed Award. I said
I think
this
he
year
passes my eye test. I think he
Okay.
passes my eye test, which is important. Like
Okay.
regardless of region, his mechanics look solid.
All right. I did say for this year in the Overwatch League, I said that Gurio would be the Skewed this year. Didn't turn out too great. Did see some playtime at first, but then got phased out as the team quickly realized that he's not good enough. So, don't feel too bad if this is the last time we talk about Dongun or anyone else. Next up, we got an award, the Haksal Award, for clearly overqualified in contenders and should just be promoted to all. Is
Let me
Tree...
start then. Let me start. No.
Okay, Avril, you want to go on?
I'm Max. Move on. Next.
Max,
Who wants to talk
okay, go
next?
on.
Okay, next. Who wants to talk
Here,
next?
here. Yeah,
That's fair. I'm all in on Max personally as well. I mean, I don't know why we're even talking about anyone else. This segment should be over.
Okay.
Well, I would say a third, but I do think when you're talking about talent outside of KR, I do think, like I said, CJ and Vega, and then Psycho and Shockwave are still like those 4 are just
Okay, I got another qualifier. I'm changing the award live on this recording. Has to be underage. Cannot play for this
Just
next
like
season.
took the award
Tree.
out of Max.
Tree,
Like,
took the award.
no.
We're changing it. Sorry, Max.
Tree, no question.
Okay, Tree, no
Okay.
question. All right. Yeah.
I
Changing the
will-
rules so I get the names I want. Sorry, guys. I run the show.
right.
You know, a quick thing about Tree. Tree created. We talked to him in an interview, and I thought it was super telling of like how good Tree is and how good everyone knows Tree is. When we interviewed Tree and we're talking a little bit of gameplay during like a Jotes meta. You know, a lot of time you would see teams respectfully sound barrier up against a blade, but a lot of the time is like, okay, there's a chance we can try and peel this and then use the sound barrier later. Tree was to the point where his team would use every ability humanly. Like normally you'd use the blade to pull the sound barrier so that your rampage could go in and get value. It was the inverse for Odyssey and Tree. They would use the rampage to pull the beat so Tree could go in with the blade and just kill absolutely everything. And it was a 100% hit rate. I was looking through the VODs earlier today. None of them missed. It's like 2-3Ks bare minimum when this guy pops an ultimate on Aura, on Genji. That guy's insane. And you're right to want him on this list for this award.
All right. Awesome. I'm glad we got there.
Jumbin.
Gentlemen?
He's the other tank on O2. He's underage.
Yeah.
Won't be eligible next year. There you go.
There you go. Got him. Thank you, Avril. I'm sorry. Look, we're gonna talk about Max so much the coming months. Okay, we'll have all the time in the world to talk about
That's
Max.
the
Avril.
next
Johnny, you know
Flat
what's gonna
chat
happen? You know what's gonna happen?
Get spoiled.
I will start the Max hype train. I will promptly get off and just
It's already
watch this
begun,
thing
mate.
steamroll. And this is what I did with Proper this year as well. I put the seed in. Reddit takes it to the next level. I don't
They've
even have
already
to talk about
started,
it that
bro.
much. And then because of me, and then at the end of the year,
Oh,
and
you're
then at the
gonna
end of the year,
claim.
they
You're
get-
gonna claim
they
all
get-
the clouds.
Yeah, where's that clip of like, well, if they win, I think it's because of me. If they lose, I think it was all their fault. You know?
Did you really stop
yeah.
talking about Proper though? Did that
Yeah.
really stop?
I wasn't on the NA broadcast, was I?
I mean, that's fair.
So
That's fair.
outside of like a couple of tweets and some podcasts, I didn't really talk about Proper. No,
That's fair. I'll give you credit.
Reddit did most of the work. They did like 90% of the work.
I will say this. If someone can find the first reference to Max on competitive Overwatch Reddit, we'll give that person credit for being the first person to recognize Max in Contenders.
That's a prestigious title.
That's a prestigious title right there. Back when he played for NTP in 2020. Also does not have a Wikipedia page. Who knows? But that was. Complete list of results in Open Division 2020, Season 2.
I saw this guy in Open Div when he was 14.
Okay, so it was AVRL. It was AVRL.
No, I'm saying that's what the person would have to be. I'm not saying I was.
Oh, yeah. Let's see, who else?
There's like some post from 2019.
But if it's Alien, I did see Alien in Ranked. I actually saw Alien in Ranked before he played on any pro team. So that I will claim, but I don't know if Alien's going to be the guy, but we'll just, I don't know.
Yeah.
If he is.
I love that. Yeah. Interesting. That same season that Max came up, Irony was playing DPS for Team BM. You know, going back and just like old Wikipedia pages is like amazing. Alpha E as well in the first tournament Max ever played. This is crazy. Anyway, I'm off on a rant. All right, so there you go. Some awards we've been handing out. We have one more award, and I feel like we've done. You know, I didn't realize how much we were talking about the teams and players. I mean, we're already 2 hours, 15 minutes in, so I don't want to spend too much time here. But I had to also create the Paris Eternal Award for so much teamwork and big brains go into it. You know, not necessarily the best mechanics, but like someone you could see succeed in the Overwatch League without necessarily being the biggest star players or mechanics. So just give us like a name. Give us like a name, a team.
You want a team or a player?
Give us a team, yeah, because of the players as a whole.
I mean, I think NA's got two. Like, I think Redbirds, I sent you a clip or something of them winning just some dumb 3v5 fight through just insane comms. They're just ridiculous teamwork. And then Cryx, while they're not at the top, made it to like...
What's with this map?
I don't know, man. There were just highlights after highlights here. I can't tell you anything more than that. And then Cryx somehow made it to like the upper middle of Contenders through just the power of friendship.
That's true, actually. they came into the tournament cycle as a team that we kind of expected, like, okay, maybe they make it to Contenders. If they make it to Contenders, then, you know, we'll see them take some maps. They'll probably win a couple of sets against some kind of like the bottom teams. And they wound up being what? I think they ended 4th in groups.
They started out looking like number 1 and then kind of settled into a 3rd, 4th area. Yeah.
They were really quick on understanding the Jodes meta, obviously enabling their Sojourn player. That's where Amazing comes from. And I think as a team, that was kind of like a team diff situation where, yes, you still have that one kind of star player, but in reality, like the team really came together in a big way without having necessarily like major standout mechanical like gods that you kind of anticipate would have that level of performance, but they did anyways.
Well, it's a team that was literally just a group of friends. Like they had been playing together for a while before. Yeah. And we're like, just to have fun, just to hang out and then show up here. And I remember the first time that we interviewed them and they were like, yeah, like, we're not really sure how we got here either, but we're having fun.
They just kept playing games on Wednesday, and Wicca Wednesday just has some kind of natural. There's just to fill you guys in. There's a player on the team named Wicca. For some reason, there's this meme going around that it's Wicca Wednesday. They just somehow overperform on Wednesdays, and they just kept having Wednesday games, man. Like, I don't know what to say.
I love that.
So it is what it is, but they got the job done either way, and I think a lot of that is just because the team together did really well. Yeah, I actually like that. I wouldn't have said Cryx myself, but I do like that.
That's the funniest fucking shit. Wicca Wednesday. It's a shame we don't actually play the Overwatch League on Wednesdays. But so I mean, it only stick around in Contenders for now. But
it might have to switch the schedule around so Cryx can be competitive there.
Yeah. They have Elk as well on that team. So, you know, a familiar name. Used to play for the Fusion, for example. So interesting. AVRL, any team in any other region that you're like, the teamwork of this team is amazing? Maybe they have a great coach, for example.
Does it need to be like an underdog team, or like
you can say O2 Blast?
Because the problem
then we should have said EXO. Why didn't we get to say EXO then? We went super deep cut and didn't get to say EXO, man.
EXO, huh?
Only good because they've got the power of teamwork and friendship.
So, I mean, we're starting to like wrap this up. You know, we've been on a long time now. We've done a lot of awards, different stuff here. But if you didn't know anything about Contenders, we've essentially just like given the entire guide to like Contenders. We have repeated a lot of names. We've talked a lot about different teams, but like I feel like we've done a really good job providing color to the Liquipedia pages and like understanding like who these players are, what the teams are known for. So, you know, I know
the geography of Australia.
The geography of Australia. There's a lot of wood in
so long ago, I forgot it happened.
Yeah. Spiders make sounds when they walk in Australia. So it's been some amazing facts here. But yeah, so
okay.
We don't have to talk about each team individually and highlight every player, but you know, if it bears repeating, I think it's noteworthy. So
the thing about Korea is I think it's pretty clear cut in some ways. Like the top teams both have better players and better teamwork, and the lower teams have worse of everything. So it's like, if I pick a team that has good teamwork, I'm like, well, if I'm not allowed to pick O2, it gets a bit worse. I just pick the second best team, but O2 just have the best players and the best teamwork. I don't know, like somehow they I don't know if they always have the best coaching. This time around, I don't have as much insight on their coaches. Whereas like last year for Smash, I knew that guy was a fucking phenomenal coach anyway. I guess it's been retained in terms of like good coaching this year. O2 just seemed to get the best of everything. Yeah, whether it's good coaching, good players, good teamwork, just everything across the board.
I mean, the partnership with Shock has kind of like this particular thread, it's sort of ruined, where we had Runaway got picked up as a team, Element Mystic found themselves back together as a team, British Hurricane got picked up as a team, O2 Blast, like I don't think we'll see these 6 players, you know, in a 5-man rotation play together now because they have that partnership with the Shock, so they can kind of like mix and match between all these players who are in that partnership, right? But like, I guess you had T1 last year, got almost like, you know, picked up as a few players together, but there's not that team that like sticks out that you're like, if these players like kept it up and found themselves together in Overwatch League, they could be like an amazing team by themselves. I guess O2 Blast is the closest you'll get to that.
Yeah, but like you said, they'd all have to end up on Shock together.
True, which is probably not happening.
I mean, which they might anyway. Look, if he's saying
I was going to say,
Shock, then you've basically got a full O2 roster.
Yeah.
It seems like that's what they're leaning towards, but it might just be a pump fake, you know.
Might just be.
Well, I'm pretty sure the AT guys want to end up together on a team somewhere. So I don't see Sam and Cluj going back to Shock.
I think by the time this episode goes live, it'll be announced where they're going. So if they are going somewhere together.
Have pickups been announced yet? Have there been any?
No.
I don't think
the free agent
players
is not live yet.
Okay. Just players being retained has been announced. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't think so. In 2 weeks' time, maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, that's my answer. It's a boring answer, but it's like you want to talk about a team with good teamwork. It's like I could throw out another team that's got worse teamwork in O2, or I could just say O2.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I mean, it is the place with the biggest talent right now in Korean Contenders, so I mean, I think that's fair. All right. So before we wrap it up, we got one more segment here. You know, obviously Contenders Run It Back is already underway at the time this goes live, but we got 2023 ahead of us still. I feel like, you know, there's going to be changes again. It's always changing around Contenders. But I'm going to ask you for one change, as people who are really, you know, into the scene, you love the scene so much, you love the competition. What's one change that you would like to see? Starting with you, Heurix, what is one change you would like to see to Contenders to make the ecosystem better and make it more entertaining? It could be, you know, more competitive, better format. Like, you could go any direction you want. More skin drops, like, I don't care. Anything that, like, oh, I really want this for Contenders in 2023.
I think there's 2 very simple answers, at least for our regions, for NA and EU, that you could package together as one thing. I think the easiest way to go about it would be volume. Obviously, that has a cost. That's difficult. We would like to just have more tournaments, less downtime. And then the other thing would just be, we want lands back, man. Like, so bad. We want lands back. It's been
same, dude.
So long.
The Overwatch League too, man. Same.
Laughing in Korea, who is all
yeah. They was sick, actually. Yeah.
That's why I did preface it with our region specifically would like lands, because
even if it's just a gauntlet though, like, and I say air quotes just a gauntlet, but like one tournament, not like all of them, but like one tournament in that format. I think that's like the obvious, like, dude, that's the pipe dream for everyone.
It is.
Would be
I think the return of a global gauntlet is like number one on the list by far for everyone, right? Because in Contenders, you need something to play towards. we all know it's like, oh yeah, you play Contenders, you might get picked up to the Overwatch League. That's nice, and that will always passively exist. But having
you need a trophy,
having like something else to play towards is a little bit more tangible than something that feels a little bit more. I don't want to say it's in the realm of fantasy, because for some players it's quite easy to get picked up for AVRL, but I mean, something to achieve within contenders is super important, and that can't just be, oh, I won NA, guess I just play NA again. It has to be something a
Plus,
little
you
bit
might get more
beyond.
consistency there as well, in terms of players wanting to stick with certain rosters and work things out and work towards something, because synergy has a profound effect on a team's success. Like, I think it would just do wonders for they're aware of this, though. This isn't like any news to anybody that's running things at Contenders.
100%.
Actually, the team that's running Contenders, I have a lot of high hopes for next year. Love that
awesome.
staff.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to do great things. It's just a question of it feels like a question of when, not if. But we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I have no idea.
Korea moving fully back on LAN, and I mean fully back on LAN. Every match is on LAN is impressive, extremely impressive, because I don't think we've ever had that in Contenders for any region. Contenders Korea had LAN before, but that was cut short because actually no, Contenders Korea has had LAN before. Some of that did get cut off by COVID. Yeah, but returning to LAN is huge.
And what was it like going to those matches? Because you
it was
went,
fun.
Right?
Yeah, it was me, Jaws, Bren, Albert and Swing were there as well, but I don't think they really announced it too hard. I mean, they did say on Twitter. And 9K was there as well. A bunch of Overwatch League players showed up, which was fun. Violet was there to basically dig his claws into Max, and he's saying and just snipe them for next year. Violet is Violet GM, I think they call him. So he's there scouting.
That's funny. That's good.
Played like every role in the team, and now he's going to join
every off season. Every off season, Violet just goes to Contenders Career. He's like, who am I going to get next? So he just shows up. It was a lot of fun. I would say the capacity of the venue was like 80% packed out as well.
Wow, that's impressive.
And I don't know why, but the team that had the most fans, you'd be surprised, was actually Team Diamond, the worst team currently right now in the season. They are 0-5 and 0-15 in maps, which means
everyone loves an underdog, man.
They haven't won a single map, but they have the most fans in the audience.
I'll be damned if I wasn't cheering for Sleepover Party.
They're also from Busan, so they have to travel from Busan to Seoul to play these games, which is like, a big
they
deal.
used to be GC Busan, right?
Yes, they used to be GC Busan.
Yeah.
So LAN is just super cool, and that by the way is the same venue that Fusion and Seoul played their LAN game this year.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah.
Sorry for hijacking Heurix's thing there, but
we have to
talk about LAN. I want to talk about LAN because it's cool
now.
Oh yeah. LAN.
Yeah, what do you got?
This one is actually about NA and EU.
Okay.
Let's please get rid of winners bracket advantage in double eagling.
Oh,
I hate that.
Hot take. Hot take.
Please.
And I agree with you.
That's not a hot take. That is ice cold take. That is the most base take of all time.
No winner bracket advantage.
Most based.
Yep.
No, hell fucking no. No way. It does not belong. People are good, but in Smash Brothers, like, bro, it's not a fighting game. We can't smash out these games out and like as quickly as fighting games do. Like, I do not like winners bracket advantage at all. I think it's super sleeper. It's very
specifically the bracket reset. Never.
That is the worst. Bracket reset is the absolute
tried to do bracket
worst.
reset BO7 for finals.
Absolute yikes.
Oh my god.
Yikes.
Yeah.
They try to do it in Contenders Australia, and I straight vetoed it. I said we're not doing this.
They learned very quickly that it wasn't what people wanted. So, but the one map advantage, I don't know if they're doing that this season or not.
I don't even like the one map advantage.
I know one map. There should not even be a one map advantage. Nothing.
Yeah.
Because you know what? And here's my justification. Because players will always cry about this. I'm like, okay, the advantage is you play less games and you show less tape. And you have an easier you have an easier side of the bracket to run through.
Sometimes getting to play that one more game is like almost it's a better warm up than you could ever get from an actual warm up scrim.
But
you're also going to be tired. So it's like it's a double-edged sword.
I'd rather have the easier bracket run.
Yeah, I'd rather not have to deal with that.
Because here's the problem is and this is the ultimate justification. I still challenge anybody to come at me with this. It's like, if you truly think that it's better for you to be in the lower bracket, because sometimes the response is like, well, if there's no upper bracket advantage, then I get 2 lives. I'm saying what people say to me. then it's like, well, I'm just, the lower bracket has an advantage to get 2 lives. So I'm like, okay, if you think it's an advantage to be in lower bracket, fucking lose and run through the lower bracket. Please lose and tell me if that's an advantage for you.
Yeah.
Actually lose, play through a lower bracket, fucking tell me. Guess what? Nobody's done that yet. Why? Because it's not an advantage.
I also the reason I don't like winner bracket advantage is because I think it objectively makes the finals worse. Like if the upper bracket team starts with 1 map.
Anticlimactic finals, yeah.
Anticlimactic. It could cut the finals very short. If they just win straight out, it's like, okay, they started with 1 map and they won 3 more.
Especially
and
when you're starting with control, Mickey Mouse map type, man.
Yeah, and like we just finished the finals in 3 maps because they got a winner bracket advantage. So yeah, and you might be like, oh well, it's a better story if like the lower bracket team then overcomes that 1 map advantage. It's like, no, I don't fucking buy that. So it's unfortunate because I know this is a conversation that some people are really passionate about, specifically teams who win and go through the upper bracket because they want to win more and increase their chance of winning. San Francisco Shock, in fact, they went through the lower bracket, but yeah. I think it's funny we all agree, because I do think that there are some people who genuinely want to believe that winner bracket should be a thing, but they can only point to like historical evidence, like, oh, this is what happens in other games, this is what happens, historically, and moving forward into the future, I don't like winner bracket advantage. So
I mean, Dota does double elim. They don't have any winners bracket advantage.
No, I mean, let them pick first map. By all means, go for it. Pick the control map. That's fine. But like beyond that, like let's settle it down. Come on.
Like I would even allow them to not only pick first map, first game mode too, if you want, if you really want
that's
something
fine.
like that. Because sometimes like you don't care about picking control, but like any team that wants to cry about like, oh, winners bracket doesn't have an advantage, fine, lose. Again, I will say it, fucking lose and go through lowers. You won't. You fucking won't, because you know that you don't have an advantage to losers. So
I don't think anybody's saying you have an advantage. Like I'm not starkly. I don't have much of a dog in this fight. Like it's not something I care that much about. But like I don't think people are saying there's an advantage to going to the lower bracket. I think they're just saying it's not a disadvantage, and they think that there should be some advantage to being in winners.
Yeah,
I don't think there should be.
No.
Yeah, then I'm not gonna die on that hill. You're welcome to have it.
Yeah.
To me, it's a qualification to finals. To me, it's about qualifying the 2 best teams in the finals. And the finals is its own thing. That's what it is to me.
Yeah, and if you're the better team, like you don't need a map win advantage to win in the first place. Like we want to see the best team win, and if you need an extra map to pull it off and win in the finals, well,
worst case scenario,
you might not be the best team. Like
is you actually get a 3-3 result, but then the team with 1 map advantage wins, and you never actually get to decide the winner of the finals.
Yeah,
because the team that wins wins because of the 1 map advantage, right? But the actual scoreline is 3-3.
Yeah,
in the BO7. That is the literal worst case scenario. That actually, not to drag this to another game, but that actually happened in Valorant in one of the ignition tournaments.
Yeah.
So it was just a 2-2, and it was like, okay, it's over now.
If you're a listener and you're very much in favor of winner bracket advantage and you feel like you have good reasoning, then I apologize that we don't have anyone who actually like has that opinion, because I do think that it could be a good conversation. But unfortunately, we don't have anyone to make the argument here. We didn't really plan to have this conversation in the first place.
It's one wish you could change. I mean, I just wish.
You wish you could change. Yeah,
I've got my last ask though.
Yeah, your last task. Go for it. Yep.
2 things on, and I think it'd be pretty easy to do. Like, just to dude, whether it doesn't have to be like full owl tokens for viewership, but like even just half owl tokens for Contenders viewership.
Owl tokens for drops. Yep.
Yeah, just add it all.
Yeah, why not?
It's easy enough. It's already implemented. Just give them the tokens.
Yeah. Like people are so passionate about tokens.
Yeah, so. Like they care about the skins, and like you'll get a few more people for doing the tokens.
One token
per easy change. Or more viewership rewards now that we've got like all the banners and stuff going on in the game. Like I think there's just some cool new viewer incentives that are able to be had with Overwatch 2.
Yeah. I feel like Contenders, like the product, is in one of the best places it's been since its inception, and now it's about getting people there, like getting to people's attention, getting people involved, and like highlighting what's going on in Contenders, the teams, the players. And so, if it takes drops to get people to tune in and watch for the first time, well, that could be an opportunity to really like hook people in and be like, yo, this is what Contenders is about. Like, we have something to offer here. Like, we're doing a great job. We have a good show on our hands. So, for sure. All right. Any last words before we shut this thing down? What an amazing episode this was. Really. I think this was a great time, guys. So I thank you so much for coming on. But any final words before
I'm sorry for making it go this long, Johnny. Let's keep this to 60 to 90 minutes. Yeah,
I told you it'd be half an hour more than what it was saying.
Look, man, we're recording 2 Plat Chat episodes tomorrow. I don't know how that's gonna go, but
yeah, we've given you more content, so
yeah, I mean, content for the people. You know, doesn't matter if it's 90 minutes or 150.
Have you guys done a 2-parter before?
No.
Oh, there you go.
No, we haven't. We didn't do Bren's Player of the Week, but at the same time we're recording 19th of November. So who's going to be Bren's Player of the Week whenever this launches? So right now it's the 19th of November. Who is the Bren's Player of the Week December 6th?
The entire country of Japan, because that's where Bren's headed to next.
Let's hope that aged well. Let's hope that ages well. Bren, you're the Bren's Player of the Week, December 6th. Unless Dor and Heurix, you wanna shout out somebody else.
Fine by me, man. I'm cool with that.
All right, we'll give it to Bren. Got it. Great. What a way to end this episode. Thank you so much for being on, guys. I wish you the best of luck with Run It Back to end the year, and have a great 2023. Next week, I don't know what's gonna happen next week. What will that be? December 13th or something like that. Hopefully I'm back by then. Actually, Esports Awards is on that, so I don't know. Maybe I'm in Vegas or something. I don't know what's gonna happen. But yeah, we'll see what happens next week. Stay tuned. Follow Plat Chat Twitter and subscribe to the YouTube, and we'll see what happens.